Let's roll, son. Do it.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Ivy Nation, to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I'm Vince. That's Brian. And we're back. I know you missed us together. Don't lie. It's okay. It's okay to be honest with yourselves.
The OGs are here. Ready to go.
What up, everybody? So I'm excited because obviously, number one, got to go to practice today. Number two, huge commitment today as well. And number three, I get to do a show with Brian. So
on his anniversary. Order. You know how much I love y'all.
That's
you know how much
true.
I love you all in this chat. You know how much I love Irish Breakdown Nation. Today's my 17th wedding anniversary, and I'm doing the show, and I'm not in trouble because my wife loves y'all too. So we're ready to go.
I know, right? But hey, a lot to talk about today. Obviously, this was the one and only full practice that the media got to see, and we were there from start to finish. So that is awesome. And then obviously Notre Dame got a commitment today, which is also awesome. And that is how we are going to lead off the show today. Talking about Ebenezer Iwotade. I think I said that right. Maybe.
Believe so.
Possibly. Yep. Okay. All right. I tried to spell it out phonetically, but you never know. You never know. But he's a 26 defensive end out of North Carolina. Big pickup for Al Washington. He committed today after practice. I mean, happy open practice day, basically, as Ebenezer commits to Notre Dame. So we're going to break it all down for you guys like we always do. Real excited about it. Trevor was also at the practice today. He made some land speed records driving home to Indianapolis after practice. And so he's going to join us as well very soon. But we kind of waited for him to get home. That way we could kick this thing off right and get all three of us in here. And that way you can get everybody's opinion because there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on today at practice. So very excited about that. But Brian, let's kick off today's show with the commitment of Ebenezer and what that means to Notre Dame. So, Brian, the backstory on this commitment for Ebenezer Ewetade.
Look, so first of all, this is an interesting recruitment, Vince, because this is one of those ones where you say, like, this is why you kind of got to be real careful with recruiting rankings, because when this kid got offered by Notre Dame, I think he was a 3-star across the board. That wasn't that long ago. And then you look at him. Notre Dame was one of the first big schools to really get on Ebenezer. And they got on him really early. And as they were kind of like right after the season, they started to really push. They had been recruiting him for a while. And then eventually the offer comes. He gets on campus on the one weekend practice that they were able to have, or a weekend recruiting visit that they were able to have the junior day after the season, before the dead period starts. He comes up on campus and staff blew him away. I think he got an offer during that visit, and they have been on him from start to finish. Really, they have. And it did a great job of. Sean Davis has talked to Ebenezer multiple times. He's talked to his high school coach. And we kept hearing the same thing every time. Al Washington, Marcus Freeman have been all over this young man. Like, they've done a great job building that relationship. So there's a couple things about his recruitment we can't share. I'll probably be able to share it Thursday evening.
Fair. Okay. I know where you're going with that.
But there was a lot to this recruitment that it was exciting. That was something that you like. But it really just came down to a couple things, Vince, because Trevor just texted me. Vince is number one, early evaluation, getting on a kid early before a lot of other schools did, recognizing the talent and saying, look, this is a raw player, which we'll talk about during the film breakdown. Very talented player, however, lots of upside, fits the defense, fit as a young man, great fit into Notre Dame as an institution. He fits there very well. And then just being aggressive and really just staff-wise being aggressive on him. and really making a hard push for this young man. So I think this staff did a phenomenal job of this recruitment. There's really nothing to pick apart. He was not originally going to commit this soon, but it was just, and it's been known. I mean, I can't tell you how many hints I've dropped about where Notre Dame stands with this kid in the last month. And then eventually everybody else starts picking it up and putting crystal balls in and stuff like that. But this is a kid that you look at and say, they did it right. Great evaluation, getting on him early, staying on him, and saying, this is a kid we want. No need to play games. Let's go get him. And for the young man, it just became very obvious right away that Notre Dame has everything I'm looking for. Everything I'm looking for. So how the commitment went down, basically he went up to Al Washington after practice and said, I'm coming. And that's if you we don't give away commitments at Irish Breakdown. We don't do that. This is his moment to shine. But what we do is we'll put out some fun little things that something is coming. We won't say who. We put a little dancing gif out last night. This is who that was about. I was told a few days ago that it was going to happen this weekend. The question was going to be, would he announce it this weekend? That was the only thing, or would he wait till later in the week? And they went through it and got it done and decided a day or so ago that he was going to announce it today, which is what I'm glad that they did. They needed to let him have his moment. And it's a pretty awesome pickup, man. But it's a lot of it's about relationships as well. And both Al Washington and Marcus Freeman did a great job with this one. But, look, Al Washington catches a lot of flack from folks on the recruiting trail. This is a phenomenal way to kick off the D-line class in the 2026 cycle. Great.
I will say that it's really cool. Outside of who he is as a player and all of those different things, I think it's really cool that he decided he wanted to make the trek up to Notre Dame and commit in person, whether they knew it was coming or else, I mean? Like, to do that in person means he's in, man. Like, he's invested. He wanted to share the moment with his coaches. Yeah. I think that's what my kid did. You know what I mean? Like, they knew he was going to commit.
Right. That's right.
Like,
now
your kid drove
an hour and a half.
Correct.
This
Big
kid
difference.
Drove from North Carolina. No, I'm saying is like it just speaks volumes about how this kid wanted to be in this class.
And that's my point. That's what I want to say is, like, he's in. Like, he's all in. He wanted to do it. He wanted to see the look on his coaches' faces. He wanted to involve his family in that commitment in person. Like, so I dig that. I think that's awesome. That says a lot to me about who he is as a player, as a person. And that's just on the outside looking in. You know what I mean? Like, a lot. Right. I'm not saying that people that do it on the phone are not committed or anything like that.
Right.
But it's just cool that he had that opportunity to do it.
The other thing too, Vince, is this is not some kid that you snuck in and beat NC State for, and that you beat North Carolina for, and that you beat South Carolina for. Notre Dame was sort of the first big school to get in on him. Ohio State followed suit. Bama offered. Georgia offered. His final five that he released a few weeks ago was Notre Dame, Bama, Georgia, Florida State, and I believe NC State was the fifth. So, and what's funny is I was looking up yesterday and I saw an article that was written in late March by one of the national people at Rivals, and they were doing predictions for where top players would go. They had Georgia as the prediction for him. Now, I laughed because I already knew then that this is how it was going to end up.
Right.
But it just goes to show, like, this is a kid that Georgia wanted, that Georgia was a take, that clearly the staff at Georgia thought they were in a great place, which is why they, it gets out that might be the school to beat. But Notre Dame was always a school to beat for this young man, and nobody else really came close. And that's why it happened this quickly, because he got out and saw all those other schools. And it was just, you look at it and it just ends up and it's like, okay, this is just kind of the place I want to be. And so it's another big win over a big time school that Notre Dame is just doing more and more and more of lately. And that just adds to the impact of a commitment like this. So,
well, you said the magic word, Brian. You said impact. So let's talk about the class impact, how it impacts the actual 26 class for Notre Dame and moving forward.
Well, so this is commitment number 8 for Notre Dame in the 2026 class, and the third defensive player and the first defensive lineman. So just from a number standpoint, that's how he impacts the class. The second part of it, Vince, is I'm gonna have to get used to this, Vince. I'm sorry, man. I missed you.
I feel like I've been replaced.
It's not because when it was I'm always calling him Vince. I'm like my grandmother. She always calls me Marty or Barry. She always calls my dad Brian or Marty, and Marty Barry or Brian.
How do you think I feel?
So,
I don't even know if I've got any of my kids right ever. So
I get it. So class impact. Notre Dame came into this class. This is an opportunity for a big D-line class. They have recruited well to good on the D-line the last couple of years. And what we've seen in recent years is D-end recruiting is starting to ramp up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you look at last year's class, Dom Hulak, bit of a hybrid guy, linebacker, edge, can do some different things. But what they didn't get in last year's class was that really explosive, twitchy edge rusher. So, of course, you're going to recruit ends in every class. You're always going to recruit at least two ends in every class. But they really specifically needed sort of that long, athletic, twitchy edge rusher. And you're talking about a young man that's still relatively new to football that last year as a junior had, I believe it was like 82 tackles, but 28 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles. Vince, you watched this film. We'll watch it with all of us together. We'll watch it in a little bit. This is still a raw young man in a lot of ways, but super productive against a pretty good level of competition. And the talent's obvious, Vince. I mean, the talent is just obvious. I mean, you look at the tools, but he fits that. You need at least one just weak side, twitchy, athletic, long, explosive, super high ceiling grade type of kid. So he adds that. I mean, he checks all the boxes, and he's a kid that's, I think, got like a 3.4, 3.5 GPA. Actually, it's on his highlight. He has 3.4 GPA. Checks off all the academic aspects of it. You talk to his high school coaches. When Sean Davis talks to his high school coaches, they rave about the type of young man he is and just the character that he has, the work ethic, the attitude, it literally just checks all those boxes. But as we have said for years, this is a perfect example, and we'll talk more about it later in the week, but this is the perfect example of these kids have always existed. Mm-hmm. These 6'4", 225, super twitchy, super athletic, Southern or Southeastern kids that care about academics, that want to go to class, that want to get a good education, but they also want to be first-round draft picks. They also want to play for championships, and that's where Notre Dame has failed so many times is because the whole, there's just not enough defensive linemen that want to go to class. Bull. They don't want to go to class and get beat by all the top schools. They're just going to go to the top schools and compete for championships. This is the type of young man that Notre Dame is always going to do well with, but a big reason why I think that it was so easy for them is not only did he check off the boxes for them, Notre Dame now checks off all the boxes for him. And they have done a lot. Some of the stuff they've done with D-line recruiting this cycle that they didn't do in the past, I don't know why, is they're taking all the guys that Al Washington has coached on the D-line who are now in the NFL, and they're taking their NFL film and showing them to these players of like, here's what you can do. Here's how this guy's a lot like you. This is how this guy fits. Like, look at Harold Landry. Look at, Zach Allen. Look at this guy. Look at that guy. And really using that, and that pitch is working for them. And then they look at, like, last 2 years, they've had 2 All-American defensive linemen. Now Washington, the last 3 years, has coached Isaiah Foskey, who was a second-round pick. Then he coached Howard Cross to an All-American season. Javante Jean-Baptiste goes out and gets drafted. He's playing for the Redskins or Commanders in year 1. Year 3, he coaches Riley Mills to an All-American season. And it's like, look, the results are starting to show now. And then, of course, Notre Dame goes 14-2. And now it's not only does he check off the boxes for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame now checks off all the boxes for him. And that's why you're seeing this success. Great, but more on top of, I think Al Washington has sort of found his sweet spot at Notre Dame where he's more comfortable with what works at Notre Dame, what fits at Notre Dame, and those type of things. So, and I didn't say Foskey was an All-American. I said he was a second-round draft pick. I don't believe he was an All-American. But, those are the things, Vince, that kind of get you a little fired up about what's going on right now. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is class impact. This is a young man that has skyrocketed up the rankings. And so some of the services don't still have him quite as high as he should be. I believe he is he's a 4-star across the board now of all the people that have ranked him. But I believe he's like around like 200 in the country on Rivals. Is like, I'm looking at now 201. He is around 242 on 247, whose rankings are just not good. But On 3 has him ranked as the number 36 player in the country and as the number 6 edge player in the entire country, both end positions. I have him he got a top 100 grade for me. He's not quite in the top 50 range for me yet, Vince, because he's so raw. But this is an easy 5-star upside kid. Like easy 5-star upside kid. Now, On 3 puts more of their upside into the ranking than I do, because I have the initial where he is right now, and then his upside of what he can be. They put them together, and that's why you have this 36 ranking. So I have no problem with their On 3 ranks him, even though you may look at my grade and said, well, you have him ranked lower. That's because I separate the present and the future in my ranking system and make them 2 grades. They put it into 1. So if I was going to say who's closer, it's definitely On 3 because I have him as a top 100 player. So this is a big-time pickup, and this is a position, Vince, that a lot of people said that's the missing link is the D-line. D-line recruiting. Can you recruit elite players in the D-line? They're starting to do that more and more and more. You got Bryce Young, and think about this, 2 classes ago, even though he's just a freshman.
I know,
you got Boubacar Traore 3 years ago. You got Logan Thomas 2 years ago. You got Chris Burgess last year. And now you're kicking this year's class off with a guy like Ebenezer, and you're starting to see that edge recruiting of what do they all have in common? Long, athletic, high upside kids. And you start getting really fired up about what Al Washington is doing at the defensive end position for Notre Dame. And this is a great way to kick off this class. Great way.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're gonna throw in the film here in just a second, and you're gonna see everything that Brian was talking about: length, get off, just raw athletic ability, but also room to mold that clay. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big piece of what you're talking about as far as the kind of guys that Notre Dame's going after. The tools that he has are elite. Now he's going to have to get coached up. He's going to have to get molded. He's going to have to get, developed and all of those different things. But, oh, man, with the classes that Notre Dame's putting together on the D-line now, I feel like you can bring in a guy who's a high-end project, and I don't want to use the word project because then people are like, oh, it's a 3-star kind of kid who you're going to have to just develop and make better. I'm saying he's a high upside type of project who's got elite tools that you just need to mold and point in the right direction, kind of a deal. You know what I mean? But he doesn't have to necessarily be a hugely impactful guy as a freshman, although he could be. I mean, he absolutely could be. But as a guy going into his senior year with more development to happen in high school, you can take a guy like this and feel really good about your situation.
That's what has me excited about this pickup, Trevor's, because this kid is a top 100 prospect right now. And he's not close to his full potential, Vince. I mean, he's not
exactly.
Close. And you'll see that on the film. I mean, he's put on about 15, 20 pounds in the last year. Like some of his early film was like, if you even look at the picture that we used from this for the show, I think it's from a sophomore year. He's got really skinny arms. Mm-hmm. But you look at him now, he was on campus today. Doesn't look like that kid anymore. He's about 225 now. He's filling out. He's a lot more muscular now. And there's still a lot of frame for him. I mean, he's going to be an easy 240, 250-pound kid, no problem.
Yes, because he's got a big frame, and there's plenty to work with there. Work with there, for sure.
Yeah, a lot. So class impact, you're kicking it off. You're meeting a need from a position-wise. You're meeting a need from a unique skill set-wise. Pass rusher, you're kicking your defensive line class off with a highly ranked player who complements your other top D-line prospect perfectly. We'll get into him here in a little bit when we talk about what's next. But, and again, here's the final piece to this class impact, Vince. Notre Dame has made a very concerted effort to get back into to make the state of North Carolina a prime region for them. And we've seen that in recent years. Obviously, in the 2024 class, you got Bryce Young, you got Micah Gilbert. They have absolutely made a concerted effort to try to get more impact in that class. And
Right.
and I'm all for it. That's a state that is a booming state in a lot of ways, Vince. And the thing I like about the state of North Carolina is 3 positions you can constantly get players out of the state of North Carolina. You can get receivers from North Carolina. You can get D linemen from North Carolina, and you can get DBs from North Carolina. Like, that's an area that Notre Dame just can't get a lot in its surrounding states. And so those are very important areas. So look at what they've landed the last 3 years from the state, 3 classes from the state of North Carolina. You got Bryce Young and Micah Gilbert in the 2024 class that are both North Carolina kids. Last year, you got Jadon Blair, who's one of your best all-around prospects in that class from the state of North Carolina. That was a big-time pickup. And then this year, you look at what they've done this year, you're now kicking off your D-line class with a kid from North Carolina. Oh, and by the way, he happens to be your second commitment from the state of North Carolina. He now joins Thomas Davis Jr., who committed to Notre Dame a while ago at linebacker. So you've got 3 kids committed on defense. 2 of them are from the state of North Carolina already, and they're hoping to add at least 1 or 2 more guys from the state of North Carolina. So it's a state that's putting out more and more and more athletes, and Notre Dame is trying to hit it hard, and this is a great way to get this thing going. So that's the final piece of the class impact, is a state that they're trying to make a big priority state. It's another big, and then the year before that, they had Sullivan Absher and Sam Pendleton out of North Carolina. So they're definitely trying to have more of an impact, especially with the D linemen and the skill players. And that's what's so important. Your last 5 commitments from North Carolina are Bryce Young, Micah Gilbert, Jadon Blair, Thomas Davis Jr., and now Ebenezer. That's big-time success in that state. Big-time success.
No doubt.
So very, very pleased with that if you're Notre Dame. Very pleased with that if you're Notre Dame.
Ready to throw on the film? I think that's where we're at. So let's throw on the film, and then we can kind of walk you guys through. Not walk you guys through. You're all intelligent. You know what you're seeing. But we're going to talk our way through it and let you guys know what we're seeing as we go through his highlight film. And there's a lot of good stuff here for sure.
Yeah, he's number 24. So you'll get a chance to see him, Vince. And the first thing you'll see, 2 things you'll see right away. Length for days. Al Washington, Marcus Freeman, these guys, look at that. Look, you can see it right there. They love length. They love frame. They love the tools. And this young man has a lot of length, a lot of tools. He's also got a very, very explosive first step. He gets on linemen absolutely in a hurry and can get around the edge in a hurry. You're going to see from this film also, still needs a lot of technical work, but that length, you just can't get your hands on him with that length. And despite the fact he's undersized, I mean, he's 225 pounds, and he's 225 pounds now. I don't know that he was 225 pounds on this film.
Can you go back to the last highlight?
Yeah. But
I want people to watch.
Go ahead.
He takes on this block, and then he has quick hands and just sheds this kid. I mean, I believe that's a tackle or a guard that's coming around, has the momentum, and should be able to kick him out. And his hand placement and speed of his hands gets that guy out of the way. Yeah.
Love that pursuit. Love the quickness. Don't stop plays right in the middle. Let me see you run. But you see the foot quickness. This is a really twitched up athlete, Vince.
Yes.
Really explosive athlete, kid that can absolutely run. You'll see the length here. You see it here. He's able to keep guys off of his body. But he's got good strength for a kid his size. That's the thing I like, Vince, is when he hits you, you don't run him over. Once he gets like 25, 30 more pounds of armor on him, he's going to be really, really a challenging player. Look at that first step. Like, he had 5 forced fumbles, by the way, last year. 28 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles. There is nothing technically sound about this play. Like, nothing other than punching the ball out. And that's the thing that you may look at and say that's a criticism, but for me, Vince, that's a praise, because I mean that's what Al Washington gets coached to do, is to teach that stuff.
Yep.
So the physical tools with this young man are very impressive, and you just see it. I mean, just not a lot of nuance to what he does. But look at this. This is what I'm talking about, though. Look at that length and look at the strength, the natural strength he has. Look at that. So on this particular play, so you're going to see. You're going to see where Ebenezer is on this play. So I love when I do that, when I'm clicking on the my screen here instead of that one. So this shows where he is. Okay. So over here, watch this right tackle. Watch his back when he engages with Ebenezer. Watch his back. Watch this. See that? That's what you want to see when a defensive lineman takes on an offensive lineman. You'll see that offensive lineman's back arch backwards. You know he popped him in the chest pretty good. And then that length to just disengage with relative ease, and then the speed to get to the football. This might be his most impressive clip on the whole highlight.
Agreed.
This particular play, because you see it all. Length. You see the strength, block destruction, and then boom.
And reading the play. I mean, he gets him out here so that he stands him up. He can read the play. He sees where the ball is going. He sheds him, and then he catches a running back from behind.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
It's a great angle.
Which he does too. Quite a bit in this highlight. In these highlight tapes. So, again, there's that length that this tight end can't get his hands on him. I think that's actually an offensive
tackle.
Not a very big one, but like he can't get his hands inside of him because he's so long. So if you watch this clip right here, watch right there. Ebenezer has his arms extended and he's into that guy's chest. The tackle has his arm extended and he's up around his tricep because he's not long enough to get his hands onto Ebenezer because of how long he is. And that's obviously another impressive clip, Vince. But again, you watch it. This kid is super raw fundamentally and technically, which I've said before I don't care as much about because that's what these D1 coaches get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars to do, is teach a kid how to play. If you can't teach a kid how to get in his stance and out of his stance and use his hands, then you're in the wrong profession. And we know Al Washington can do that. So I'm not concerned about that. But it's some impressive plays here. But the athleticism, Vince, the tools, he's got the things you can't teach.
Mm-hmm.
He's tall, he's long, he's twitchy, he's athletic, he changes direction with ease, he's strong. He's an impressive athlete. Very impressive athlete.
I do like the fact that they do put him in a 3-point stance every once in a while, too. They don't just let him stand up and just go. Again, there's a lot of stuff that he needs to learn, obviously.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they let him do both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that'll fit at Notre Dame because he'll be asked to do a little bit of both at Notre Dame.
Exactly.
He won't just be asked to do one at Notre Dame.
And it won't be completely foreign to him to put his hand in the dirt.
Look how quickly he beats this tackle. This is just...
He crosses his face so fast.
Yeah. Just blows right past this guy. It's an impressive play.
They tried to block him. They tried to down block him, and that wasn't going to happen.
No chance. No chance.
So
this is Ebenezer. Again, this isn't really, I mean, you see that, like, this is a clip where it's like, okay, this is what narrows his base, comes off high, doesn't step with power. But then he grabs.
But he's just strong. Like once he gets him,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. A lot of technical stuff to work on. But again, what Marcus Freeman has prioritized from the day he arrived, and what Al Washington is starting to do more and more of, is like, look, let's go get those guys for those elite tools, whether they're ready to play right now or not ready to play right now. The focus is on the ceiling. And this kid has a very high ceiling. And this was also his first year of playing varsity football, which I also thought was impressive. This is a kid that's still very new to football. This is not a sport he's been playing since he was 5 years old. Really like this young man. It's another example. Just look at that length. He does this with one arm. Look, watch. Right there, he's got one arm on that guy. You can see his right arm is free the entire time. That's a really impressive play, Vince. Really impressive play. This kid gets taught how to play the game, like at a level like you expect. And this isn't a knock on his high school coaches. Again, he's new to football. I mean, I think they've actually done a pretty good job getting this kid ready to play with the technique he has.
Because he does do a good job of standing the guy up, reading the play, react. Like, he does do a good job of that. There's no doubt.
Right. It's just you can only coach so much in his first couple years playing football.
Right.
So that's Ebenezer, man. This is a very, very impressive football player. Vince, very impressive football player.
100%.
Big pickup for Notre Dame.
Yep,
Very
it's a
good pickup.
it's a big time pickup. Watching his film just gets me excited. And again, I always the one reason I hate doing these with you is I'm like, why couldn't I get a guy like that when I was coaching? Like, what the heck? Why did I never have an elite guy that was getting recruited by Notre Dame? Like,
Yeah, you still might be coaching, man. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
seriously. Yeah, right. Anyway, but yeah, so that's a film breakdown. Brian, so what's next in recruiting at Notre Dame? Lots of guys at practice today, lots of families at practice today.
Oh yeah.
It was a crowded house, let's just put it that way. So I know there was a lot of recruits there as well. So what's next for Notre Dame?
Yeah, well, what's interesting, Vince, is this week has been very important for Notre Dame defensive line recruiting because they're getting a lot of their top targets are on campus this week. For example, Dre Quinn was on campus earlier this week. Big time talent out of Georgia. Mikhail Blade's currently on campus, a very talented player from Illinois. Kerry Wilder is on campus today. His flight got canceled because of weather. He had to fly in today. You had Xavier Griffith-Haynes was supposed to be on campus this week. His flight got canceled. But you've had David Jacobs, talented 2027 kid, was on campus. Marcus Fakatu was on campus. A big-time 2028 kid was on campus. You obviously remember the big weekend in late March with Braden Parks and Devin Robertson and those kind of guys. But what you've got going on these next few weeks or these last week is you had a lot of your top players are coming on campus. And then in mid-April, you're going to get Elijah Golden's going to be visiting campus. And they're trying to get Tiki Holas on campus again too. But they're trying to put together an elite D-line class. And there's a lot of reasons for that. This is something they've been working on for a while. When you look at their first couple classes, when this class shows up, those guys are going to be juniors and seniors. The Boubacar class will be seniors. The Bryce Young class will be juniors, which is just wild to talk about. We're talking about a commitment of a kid who will be on campus when the freshman, borderline freshman All-American player kid will be a junior. It's just still weird to think about that. How quick all this stuff goes. But, those guys are going to be juniors and seniors. So this class is meant to kind of add to that, but then replace those guys when they leave. But also, this has been known for a while that this was going to be a really deep class nationally. This is a really good, I would argue, from what I've seen so far on film, nationally, the two positions that I think are the deepest and the most talented are D-line and running back, especially the edge. This is a great edge class. And Notre Dame has got to take advantage of that by landing some of these big-time edge players. And so they want at least 5 kids in this class in the D-line. I think they'd take 6, honestly, if it was the right 6. And so when you look at the defensive end position, that's where obviously Ebenezer plays. You've got another player that's making a commitment over the next week. On April 10th, that's Thursday at 4 o'clock. Rodney Dunham will make his decision. He is going to be announcing between, actually, I think it's, let me pull up his, I know it's, believe it's also Georgia. There's some people that think Georgia is his top school. Let me just go pull up Rodney's top list for right now. He will be committing to either Notre Dame, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, or Duke. That's who he commits to on Thursday. Ebenezer's the number 36 player in the country on 3. Well, Rodney Dunham is the number, I think he's number 7 player in the country. Yeah, he's the number 7 overall player in the country, according to on 3. So you're talking about 2 top 50 caliber players that Notre Dame is trying to close on. If they're able to close on him on Thursday, and again, if you're a member of the board, you know my stance on where Notre Dame stands with Rodney Dunham. This would be a great start to the class, but they're gonna try to add at least 3 edge players, and I could even see them landing 3 true edges, and then a 4th kind of a hybrid guy, a guy that could maybe play edge, maybe grows inside, a Mikhail Blade and Elijah Golden, a guy like that. So I think there's sort of a dream scenario for Notre Dame where you get Ebenezer, you get Rodney Dunham if you can close on him on Thursday. And then if you can get one of Dre Quinn or Mikhail Blade, maybe both, and to kind of finish out the class. And then, of course, it's focusing on the interior You want to get Tiki Hola. They're obviously looking at Elijah Golden as a potential guy that could move inside. Kerry Wilder, who's on campus right now from California. He's a guy that right now is a 6'4", 260-pound end that absolutely moves inside. Like he's a Riley Mills type of guy that he'll move inside very quickly and be an inside guy. They're recruiting him as an inside guy. They love him as a prospect. We're hoping to get some intel on how that thing's going to go. And then, of course, you also have another North Carolina defensive lineman in Noah Clark, who's a 6'3", 305, 310-pound kid that they're also recruiting. They just got to get him on campus. It's hard for me to really feel too good about where they stand with Noah because he hasn't been on campus yet. All the other kids that I've mentioned, except for, well, actually now that Kerry Wilder's on campus today, all those other kids have already visited on their own dime. And we always talk about, Vince, if you can't convince a kid to come visit campus on his own dime before the official visit starts, you got no shot. Right. And they got all these kids on campus. They got them on campus early. So, it's been a while since they've had Elijah Golden on campus. He'll be back on the 17th. It's been about a year, I think, since he's been on campus. So that'll be an interesting one. But a lot, I mean, think about all the kids that they've had to visit this past week. So where they're at now, Vince, is the board is elite. The question is, how will they close? So can they get Rodney Dunham on Thursday? If we feel good about that one, let's say hypothetically do, okay, can you close on Dre Quinn? Can you close on Mikhail Blade, who's getting recruited by some big-time schools? He's just was down at Tennessee. Can you close on Tiki Hola? Can you close on Elijah Golden? Can you close on Kerry Wilder? Can you close on Noah Clark? How many of those guys can you close on? Because right now they've got a board that's about 8 or 9 guys. You've got to get at least 5 of those 8. Let me actually look at the offer list right now, Vince. So if you look at the board right now, I'd say it's Mikhail Blade, Rodney Dunham, Ebenezer, Xavion Griffin-Haynes. You've got that are like legitimate targets right now. You got Dre Quinn, Kerry Wilder. You've got Noah Clark, Elijah Golden, Tiki Hola. Those are, I'd say, so that's 9. You've got to get at least 5 of those 9. If you can get 6, that's awesome. You get 5 of that group of 9, you've got an elite defensive line class. What's the one position? Well, there's been 2, but what's the one position on defense that most fans rightfully claim is the one position that Notre Dame is not quite on that elite level yet? It's D-line. Well, you've got a chance to put an elite defensive line class together. You just got to close. So that's really what's next, Vince. It's not even about you got to go find some new guys. It's you got to close. The board's there. These kids are coming to campus. There's a ton of interest. You're doing a great job. Got to close. But here's what's important about Ebenezer is you just kicked your class off with an elite player. I've said this about football. As much as things have changed with how football's going and recruiting's going, the one thing that hasn't changed, guys that are the great players that still want to play most of them want to play with other great players. A great D lineman knows I can't be the only dude on this line or it's going to be really easy to block me. Great linebackers don't want to play behind a bunch of average defensive linemen. They want to play behind dudes. So when you get a kid like this, it makes it easier. It's like a game of dominoes. When that first domino falls, if it's a big-time domino, it then starts to kind of get everything else rolling, and it makes it easier for you to close at a high level. And that's what getting a kid like Ebenezer does. And then you hopefully can build some really positive momentum on Thursday with Rodney Dunham when he decides between, as I mentioned, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Duke. So it's about closing. The board is there. The pieces are in place, Vince. What's next is just close on them. You got to close on them. And these aren't guys that I'm sitting there saying, well, he's the 3.5-star kid now, but he's got 5-star. I mean, these are guys that are really good players now and even higher ceilings. And the only guy that I kind of view as a true project is Noah Clark, who's the biggest guy on the board at 6'3", 310. That's the only real quote project that you have on the board. And it's an impressive group, Vince. It's a very impressive group. You just got to close on them. That's the key.
Well, there you have it. That is our breakdown of the recent commitment of Ebenezer Iwotade, defensive end in the 26th class from North Carolina. Go ahead.
Before we move on to the next thing, Vince, I did want to get a couple of these super chats real quick. I wanted to get one from Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. It says, hats off to Coach Washington. Big time dude. Great offers. Yeah, this is absolutely a huge pickup for Washington. And this isn't one of those where, I've said in the past, he wasn't the primary driver of that guy's recruitment, this one flat out was. He did a phenomenal job getting this young man in the class. Then also Luth Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Thank you, Brian and IB Nation, for the prayers for my wife this week. Physically, improvement has been minimal, but spirits have lifted greatly. Thank you all. The Lord is at work in this community. We will continue to pray for her, man. We do appreciate that very much that you've given us. I've asked you for updates. Please keep them coming. But you don't have to give us super chats, man. We'll get your prayer requests up on there.
Right.
You need to hang on to that too, because you guys are dealing with some stuff, but we appreciate you, man. And we'll continue to keep your wife in our prayers. And I'm glad you're able to be with us today in the show. So I just wanted to get to those here real quick, Vince, before we move over to the practice.
Nope. Sounds good. Appreciate it. So again, that is our commitment show for Ebenezer Ewetade. Iwotade, excuse me, no extra N, I'm just not adding letters here. The defensive end out of North Carolina, huge pickup for Notre Dame, Coach Washington, and obviously more to come in the 26 class. He's the 8th signee or commitment, in the 26 class. So very exciting news out of Notre Dame today. All right, Brian, let's talk about, well, first of all, let's bring in our buddy Trevor, who was also in attendance today at practice and made the long drive home, and he is ready to rock and roll. We finally got an all-access pass to practice today. We were there from start to finish, and we got to witness some practice, which is obviously super exciting. And there was a lot to see today, and we were kind of all focused in different areas and trying to make it happen and trying to, furiously write down everything that we saw and how all of that went. And it was nice to see some football again. This is the first practice I've been able to go to. And it's obviously, the first and only full practice that everybody is able to go to. But like I said, lots of recruits on hand, lots of families on hand. It was about an hour and a half practice, a lot of good stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break it down like we always do. We are actually going to start, and I know this is different for Irish Breakdown, but we are going to start on the defensive side of the ball, gentlemen. And we are going to talk some defense, and we're going to go front to back. We're going to go D-line, linebacker, secondary, kind of our thoughts, anything that we saw that we want to talk to you guys about. We're going to kind of get after it. So overall,
I do want to do overall stuff with each one side.
Yeah, I was throwing it to you.
What I liked about today, guys, is this is our first chance to really see Chris Ash. And I'm going to be real with y'all for a second. Okay. Real. I've said it before. I wasn't a huge fan of the Chris Ash hire, and there's still a lot we have to learn about Chris Ash. We've seen 3 partial practices and 1 full practice. And one of the criticisms that I had heard about Chris Ash was kind of how he interacts with players. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I had an intel piece about how things are going so far is positive. But this is a day where I was like, okay, I really want to see how this goes. I didn't hear Chris Ash all day. I barely saw him. He was there, but it just seems like the guy that I've heard about from other places, it's not what we've seen. Now, maybe he's one of those guys like Brian Van Gorder would always kind of play to when the media was there. Brian Van Gorder acted differently. You know how I know that? Because remember when where the indoor facility is now, they used to practice on that field. And they would have they had it marked off, you had a fence, but you had what would be like a tarp covering the fence. You can hear everything.
Right.
And when you listen to Brian, you're like, that guy is foul. And I'm a football coach, right? And I'm from a Navy town, right? Kirsten doesn't that guy's foul. And then when we'd be there and it was an open practice, very different presence. I haven't heard that about Chris Ash, but I got to say, to see how much. And this isn't a better, worse than it used to be. It's just an observation of Chris Ash, who I'm not comparing to Al Golden Rebus. I'm just evaluating for what he is. The amount of teaching they do, and it's now been that way. Trev's been at all 3 practices. The amount of fundamental teaching that they do every single day at every position group is really something that I like to see. And it backs up some of the things that I'd heard. The positive about him is where, you talk to people from Ohio State, the players of Ohio State, they'll say, look, he's a big believer in we got to know what we're supposed to do and know our job and play really fast. And you guys saw that today. But it's just there's constant teaching going on. The only guy that I heard get loud today was Al Washington. The rest of the coaches it's just constant teaching. And out Washington was during the team period. He was on the sideline trying to get attention of guys that were on the other side of the field. It wasn't like, UMF.
Yeah, he had to walk.
Like that.
He had to walk onto the field a little
right.
bit to make sure the other side could hear him. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
But like just constant teaching, and then to see that how it gets played out in practice, you're like, this was a pretty sound day where I thought the defense was dominant. Some of that dominance was expected. A, it's spring. B, the offensive line is just saying it's a shell of itself is kind. You're talking about an offensive line where one regular practice today. That's it. So you expected some level of dominance, but the dominance was really kind of everywhere. But just like there weren't a lot of like, wow, that was a big mistake by the D. That was a big mistake by the D. That was a big mistake by the D. Didn't see a lot of that today. And the couple of the big plays that the offense made were, that was a great play call by Mike Denbrock. Or holy moly, that throw by CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie, or what a great cut by that running back to make that play. The offense had to earn everything it got today. And, it was good to see that, but it was good to see a whole practice of, okay, let's evaluate Chris Ash. And to just see there's a calmness to how he is, which Al Golden was a lot like that also, which is good. Because it can be a bit of a culture shock when you have a coach who's kind of calm. I mean, Vince, it was rare that Al Golden would get real intense at practice. Rare. He was a teacher. You get worried when a guy comes in and he's a polar opposite. He's it's like that can be a shock for. It's not. It was just like, okay, it's about you're Notre Dame, man. We don't gotta get in your face and MF you and kick you in the butt like this. We're teaching. And then demand high standards, which you can also tell they do. So that was my first big picture takeaway from the one open practice we're going to see, which is, I think, important for me to point out because I'm not someone who thought this was a great hire. I didn't. I'm okay admitting that. I always want to be wrong if I don't think something's good or great. So far, again, we won't really know till we get the games in the fall, but so far, I got to say I'm pretty impressed with the things I'm hearing about Chris Ash, and you saw that in the intel piece the other night, and then also saying that now. And I just felt like it was important for me to kick things off by saying that since I was critical of the hire. So I thought I just wanted to kind of get that out there to kick things off.
Cool. Any overall impressions from you, Mr. Trevor Trowbridge?
Yeah, long time no see, gents. But it was, for me, the thing that stood out the most was the amount of communication and abundance of it at all three levels between the defensive line, the linebackers, and the secondary. And again, this kind of is a testament to what Brian was talking about, having a first-year defensive coordinator. It's his first spring. But there's still a lot of clarity in what all the players are doing. Very rarely did I see coaches coming onto the field or pulling aside specific position groups and, hey, you were out of position here. This is where you need to line up. Hey, this is what this call is here. This is what you made. It was just a lot of fine-tuning details. I've been writing a lot of articles. We at Irish Breakdown have been cranking out a lot of content about the press conferences that have been going on over the last couple of weeks. And every single defensive player talks about how their goal for this spring is to continue to fine-tune and continue to refine what they're doing. And we got to see that today at practice at all three levels. Nobody looked lost. Everybody was super intense, which is something that I like seeing, especially from defense. And so, they celebrated the wins. They coached up the mistakes. But for me, the biggest thing that stood out, guys, was definitely the level of communication that was going on amongst the players. And there was no drop-off from, all right, the first team's out there and they're doing first-team things. You hear Drake Bowen barking out different alignments. You see a Don Schuler getting everybody ready in the secondary. But then it was consistent throughout when the second team would rotate in, when the third team would rotate in. And that's something that builds a lot of confidence. That's for sure.
I like that. Any more overall things that you want to talk about, Brian, before we get into position specific? Okay, so let's jump right in. Defensive line. Trevor, I'll let you go first. Your thoughts on the defensive line, and we'll talk about the offensive line later, so we don't have to have caveats and things like that. We'll talk O-line, later on in the show. But just defensive line specifically, what stood out to you? Any players stand out to you? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like you said, this was the position that I have the toughest time kind of gauging because of the makeup of the offensive line, current state. But I'll say this. The defensive players that I had my eye on today, this was the first full sample size that we've gotten to see of players like Jason Onye, Jared Dawson, what Elijah Hughes was going to do. It also reconfirmed some things in the first practice that we saw. We saw Cole Mullins. He moved back outside the defensive end. He was taking reps out there. Today, he worked as a defensive end. So that's promising to see because we all believe and we are all under the impression that that's kind of where he projects the highest, which is something that gives a lot of confidence in this D-line room. But for me, the first person that I'll start at, Jason Onye. There's been a lot of talk this season about weight gain and who's put on weight and who's lost weight in the offseason. And Jason Onye, I believe, went from like 291 to he's up to like 308.
He looks so much wider than he did. Like that 47 sits on his body differently than it did the last time I saw him in person. Like,
sure does.
It just looks different.
It does, man. And I think it showed today in practice. He's getting a little bit more push.
Mm-hmm. Stronger.
And yes, he definitely looks a little stronger than what he did last year. But he's same thing with Jalen Sneed, which I know we'll talk about later. The weight wasn't detrimental to his explosiveness as an athlete, which is always something that you want to see. Elijah Hughes was somebody else that also, he stuck out to me on a couple plays as well. I know when we talked about the transfers and when players were coming in, everybody was saying, they got Jared Dawson, look at his efficiency numbers, and all those still remain to be true. But Elijah Hughes was kind of that guy that was the afterthought. It's like, yeah, they got this kid from USC, didn't play a whole lot. He has multiple years left of eligibility, so Notre Dame will have him beyond 2025. But today, he had a pretty good scrimmage. He stuck out to me in the team period in both like the short yardage and in the actual jersey scrimmage that we got to see. But he's pretty quick off the ball, man. That was something that I wasn't expecting to see from him. So the tools, the athletic tools are there for him. It's going to be awesome to watch him continue to refine and fine-tune some of those things. I didn't catch too much of when they were doing their one-on-ones at the other end of the field. But from what I heard,
it wasn't pretty.
Sounds like the D-line kind of had their way.
You're an offensive guy.
Yeah.
And they should have, Trev. I mean, they're going against it's like Bryce Young going against a walk-on or a true freshman. Like, that's a battle he should win and win comfortably. It's Jason Onye or somebody like that going against Devin Houston, who we'll actually have a lot to say about today. But, like, guy's been playing offensive line for 2 weeks.
Right.
You should win that battle. It just makes it really hard to do. But if they didn't dominate today, that'd be a cause for concern because of who they're going against. So it was good. But you know what I thought, Trev, and I wanted to see Vince and I talked about this on our drive home. I wanted to see if you saw the same thing. Like, look, I don't care that Bryce Young dominated today. He was going against, Max Anderson, who I love as a walk-on. Like, that's the kind of kid you put down on scout team. He's going to give you a great look. But that's not a kid that should be going against your first team defense in a drill where you're trying to evaluate your first team offense or your second team offense. It's just hard. And that's not Max's fault. That's just what injuries have done because Notre Dame is down so many guys in the offensive line. So I don't really care that he won, but what I'm looking for from Bryce Young today is I want to see a kid that shows me that he's just not winning with speed and strength anymore. And that's actually something that I saw today. I saw Bryce using his hands way better today than we did in the spring. The only time Bryce Young won on pass rushes in the fall is when he just beat a guy on the edge with his speed, was able to get his inside hand and just keep him off of his body. We saw him coming off in some tight rushes where he was using his hands to get himself free. He was getting under. He had a couple double moves. Like, you're seeing him start to up his technical game even more than from where he was as a freshman. I care a whole lot more about that than necessarily the end result against someone that he should beat, just athletically should beat. And that's something that I did notice today, Trev. And Vince and I talked about that on the drive home, is from guys like him, from Jason Onye, you're starting to see a little bit more of a we talked about this, build onto the repertoire. You're seeing that a little bit with some of the returners today.
Well, and that's that development piece that we were talking about when we're talking about bringing in a guy like Ebenezer, right? It's that development piece. And now they can show in real time hey, look, this kid was a lot like you when he was your age. This is where this kid is now. You know what I mean? Like it's a real time comparison. And then, of course, like you said earlier, you can show kids also what guys are doing in the NFL, and you can say, this kid was a lot like you when he was your age. Look where he is now. So you got like every step of the way, whereas Notre Dame didn't necessarily have that at Notre Dame at the time. You know what I mean? So they've got it at every level, which I really like. And, you know, as far as the D-line is concerned, I mean, they were fun to watch today because they were living in the backfield. And it wasn't just because of the way that the offensive, you know, who the offensive line was lining up. There was really good things to see. I mean, when you see Jason Onye doing what he did on that one rep to Charles Jagasaw, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's legit, you know, because that's a legit kid that he's doing it against. I mean, you know,
don't need to see anything else. Yeah,
right?
all right,
Okay, Jason Onye is in a different place than he was the last time I saw him. You know.
Okay, here's my question I want to have for you guys, and I want you guys to answer it because see if what you saw is different than what I saw. That play to me showed, okay, that's why you wanted to get more beef on him. That's why you wanted to get him stronger. So you could come off and, you know, he's always had great length and he could, you know, get good pad level. But can you take a 330-pound guard and get, you know, kind of inside arm, you know, wrong arm him and get up under the pads and drive him off and get him on his heels? That's not about length as much as it also has to have some, you have to have some butt behind you and you have to have some strength. So you get why, like, okay, that's why they got him bigger.
Yes.
What did you guys think of what you saw from him athletically? Because here's the interesting thing. Here's the potential rub. In theory, when you put 12 to 13 pounds on a guy that came, when he showed up, he was like 260. He's now about 310 now. So does the athleticism stay? Before I give my thoughts, I want to hear from you guys what you guys saw from him today. You know, quickness, closing speed, all of that from Jason on top of the strength.
Yeah, I don't think that he's lost anything in terms of his first step is get off of the line of scrimmage, if I'm being honest. I mean, top end speed, you can be an explosive athlete. You're not going to be as fast as you were when you came into 270. Like that's just when you put on almost 40 pounds of added weight, your ceiling is going to go down in top end speed. But as far as play goes on the D-line, I thought athletically he still looked just as good as he did last season. That was my immediate takeaway from that. Vince, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't lost his initial step. And when you're a defensive lineman, like an interior defensive lineman, that's what I don't want you to lose. The top end speed, I don't really care about. Like, you know, look, if you can hawk down a kid, you know, down the sideline, added bonus, I guess, right? But that's not your job. Like, that's not what I need you to do. I want you to have a quick step so that you can cross face on a guard and get in the backfield, right? I want you to have quick hands, which he still does as an interior defensive line. He always had that. And then now he's put on the weight as well. And he hasn't lost that. And I think that's what's really, really important because before he was an undersized interior defensive lineman. I mean, he just was, right? And now he's got the size to match his position. And now is where he makes an impact. Before he would make an impact maybe on third down, you know, that kind of a deal. He could be an all three down lineman now with his size because he can clog the middle. He can push a guy around a little bit. He doesn't just have to cross face, get around, right? He can go and he can stand a guy up, toss him, make a play. He couldn't do that before. He wasn't strong enough, but he still has that in his arsenal now of quick get off, quick hands. So he's just added to his tool belt, in my opinion.
And that's what I saw. The foot quickness was there. The bigger concern I have is the initial burst. I wasn't as worried about losing. He kept that. My bigger concern is what's the lateral quickness look like? What's the change of direction look like? And I saw I saw the same athlete that we saw the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Just a bigger version of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of a bigger version of it, Gabriel Rubio is noticeably thicker as well. And we saw him today anchoring really effectively, like really holding up at the point of attack. Just really kind of just like there was a couple of places they tried to double team him and he would just, I think one time it was Otting and Absher So it wasn't even like, oh, it's the walk-ons. It was Joe Otting and Sullivan Absher, good football players. And he just locks in, anchors that back foot, and they just stuck on him. They just couldn't move him at all. And then a linebacker flows to the ball and makes a play. On top of some snaps where we saw Gabriel getting off blocks, getting the ball carrier. Vince, there's a couple times, the way we would track plays is, and we can't provide the data because they asked us not to, but like what we track it for ourselves is like, look, inside zone, 97-34 stop or whatever, and we'll make these little notes that help trigger me of, okay, I remember that play. There's a couple times like 97-34. I think I said that to you about 2 or 3 different times, Vince.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was like, one time I was like Gabe and Drake, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, sorry, 97-34. That was good to see as well today. Using his hands, but same thing, using his hands better. So that was, and there was a little bit more of, like, I felt you could evaluate the D tackles more than the ends, because even if they're still going to go against Jagasol, Joe Otting, and Sullivan Absher. Right. That's a good group to go against. It was the tackles where it was really tough to evaluate where they were. Yeah. And, even like the second team O-line was like Peter Jones at left guard. It was Devin Houston at right guard. It was Cam Herron at center. Like, those are good football players. I thought Armel Mookum had a solid day. Nothing great. Moved. His motor was running hotter than we saw last year. He wasn't in. The get off was pretty good. A guy that I know popped. I heard you guys talking about a couple times too. I thought Elijah Hughes showed me some stuff today. He showed me some playmaking ability, guys.
Yeah, he made a nice play at one point where he cross-faced on the guard and got in the back. He didn't quite get in the backfield, but he didn't need to. He got into the hole, and he forced the running back to change his path and right into another guy. And it was an impressive little move. Like, I was surprised that he was able to do that. That was a nice move.
Yeah. Another player along the interior that also kind of stuck out to me. We've been getting a handful of questions about him too throughout the offseason. Is Brennan Vernon. He got into the backfield in pass rushing situations a decent amount. So he was another player to me that stuck out. It wasn't anything overly consistent. They rotated a lot today, but when he was on the field, I noticed. So Brennan Vernon was another kid to me that stuck out today.
He had a couple really nice plays. There's a couple times Brennan was like there. He just needs to get out to that B gap where he was supposed to be there, which let a quarterback get outside. But like, that to me is like, clean that up. But the quickness off the ball, the ability to get penetration. There's one play where we saw a guy get free, and we're like, who was that? And what's cool about, and I really appreciate Notre Dame doing it. They don't do it for us, but like, they do it. Is they have a big screen, and then they'll show the replay on it. Now that's so the coaches can look up, which I was like, oh God, I wish we had that when I was coaching. Coach, I didn't do that. Yes, you did. Look at the screen. You know what I mean? Like, Coach, I was where I needed to be. Nope, right there.
I still love. Listen, I still love having it for us though too. I mean,
yes.
I know they're not doing it for us, but
yes.
to have instantaneous review of what we just saw, because we can only see so much on live, right? Like, I'll watch one side of the line, or I'll watch the quarterback or whatever, and then I can look up and be like, okay, that's why that happened, or what, check the coverage, or check whatever the case.
So on that play, we looked, we're like,
awesome.
Who was that?
Yeah,
I was like, that guy got through the hole quick. He's kind of a big guy, and you look at it and you're like, dude, that was Brennan. That was 17. That was Brennan Vernon.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's go, B. So the interior guys, I thought I came away more impressed with today, simply because I felt like they were challenged a little bit more.
Yeah,
that's really
fair.
That's really my thing. Yeah.
I think
Junior Chilamaka looks solid. He had a solid day. Josh, guys, I just got to be honest with y'all. We didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the ends. It was just such an unfair, like, Josh Burnham made some plays on the edge. Junior had a couple nice pass rushes where he just blew by, and you're just like,
right.
Guys, these are guys that played in the college football playoffs. These are guys who are beating Penn State guys and Georgia guys. Like, they're going against freshmen and walk-ons. Like, it's just we can only watch so many guys on a play.
Right.
We just kind of had to make the business decision, just not pay as much attention to the edge players today. So, like, we don't have a lot about Burnham. The reason we looked at Bryce is, number one, you can't help but see Bryce because he's just constantly in the backfield. But we're looking for that technical piece. But a lot of our time was spent inside because it's just hard to tell. Like, Josh Burnham made a lot of plays today. He should have. Junior made some plays that he should have. I mean, it's who they were going against, and that's why we kind of paid a little bit more attention to the interior guys. So, but that's some of the stuff that stood out to me. But you know what? I'll say this, guys. I think the conditioning of the Vince. This is more for you, Vince, because this is Trevor's first year here. Does it not look like the D line just moves like a group that's in just better shape?
Yeah.
Like they're pretty big.
Yeah.
Like that's something I was curious about because this is by far the biggest D tackle room we've seen at Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman, like by far.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved well. Like, and I don't mean like
as a group,
fast, just like how they go through drills. They don't take reps off like they have in the past. Like they're hustling in and off the field. Like they just look like they're in great shape for big guys. And
they were sprinting on and off the field. I mean, there was no loafing going on by the D line. Let's put it that way. Not that Al Washington would allow it because he does coach those guys hard. But yeah, it's a different looking room than it has looked in the past. I will say that. So it's a good looking group. That's for sure. Speaking of a good looking group, let's talk about the linebackers. Because that's just a deep group who's all over the field. They were making plays in the backfield as well today, and just watching them go through tackling drills and watching them do, just their regular circuit kind of stuff. It's like, okay, this group is still pretty darn good. So Brian, your overall thoughts on the linebackers, and then we'll get to Trevor.
Well, the first thing is, Vince, obviously they run well. I thought the Mikes were impressive. We saw a lot of Kingston at Mike today working with the twos. Drake and Kingston are a really impressive 1-2 punch at middle linebacker. There was one play where they weren't lined up on a short yardage situation, and they still stuffed the offense, which I thought was pretty funny. Now we thought it was
the defensive line wasn't even in their stance. Like they were trying to figure out.
It wasn't a good spot, but like the offense could bear. It was like fourth and this much, and they got stuffed. It was a bad spot. Which, by the way, Vince, I don't know if you guys saw this. I was busting on the referees afterwards, just kind of having some fun with them. I was like, "Oh, come on, guys, this was a bad spot." And I was like, "It's spring for you guys too. Don't you guys need practice like getting booed? We can help you out. Just the refs that come here are really good dudes. Actually, there's one lady that comes too that's really funny, but like they're actually pretty cool people. Yeah. But they're out there working too, man. They're going through spring ball too, and that kind of stuff. It was a bad spot, but it is what it is.
Did they admit that it was a bad spot?
He goes, "It always is." It was actually kind of funny. He goes, "That always is."
That's a great answer, though. That's
great. He put a big old smile on his face, like, "Oh, it always is." They were good, but
that's funny.
But the thing is, like, they still made the stop on that particular play, and so, but just they were lined up well. We saw Preston Zinner getting some reps at Mike today. He looked really good. He was flying to the football. The Mike position is absolutely loaded. Will. I'm curious kind of what you guys saw from Will. A couple things that I saw. Jalen Sneed, really explosive sideline to sideline. Like, you are correct, Trev. This is my first chance really locking in on Jalen. His sideline speed with the extra weight, it's pops. He gets downhill in a hurry. He still needs a lot of work with block destruction. He still lets blockers get into his body way too much. That's the final piece to Jalen Sneed really locking down that Will position, is he's got to do a better job of getting his hands on or getting his hands into defenders and getting good block destruction. That's the final piece to this for Jalen Sneed. But he looked more comfortable decision-making. He wasn't like out of position. So I saw that part was good. He's just got in the run game, he's got to do a better job of really getting downhill, creating that violent contact, initiating the contact, not letting the blocker come to you. It hit, engage, lock out, get off the block. He's still not doing that with the consistent enough, or at least he didn't today. I thought Jaden Osbury had a solid day. Jaden's just better kind of work. He's more of a natural inside backer than what Jalen is. And so I thought Jaden Osbury worked a little bit better getting down the hill. I thought the two most impressive linebackers all day were Drake and Kingston, just as far as combination of athletic ability and just being correct. Like, one of my favorite plays today was like, this is why this defense is good. There was a play where Notre Dame was running. It looked like they were, I can't say, but they're running something off tackle. And tight end is coming to block, and Kingston just rips inside of the tight end, just flies downhill, beats the tight end inside, and forces a bounce. As soon as the guy bounces, Jadon Blair fits right outside of Kingston and just blows up the running back for like a 1 yard gain. And that's perfection right there of what you look for. But it started because Kingston just flew into his gap and just beat the tight end bad uphill. And then, of course, the tight end's inside blocking, which forces the bounce, and then Jadon's there to clean it up. It might have been a 1 yard loss, but it just blew it
right
up.
around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and that's just like watching Drake and Kingston just fly downhill today was really impressive to see. Those two guys I thought were most noticeably around the ball all the time and just playing the combination of fastest plus being in the right spot. They were the two that stood out to me. Madden Faremo is a really talented guy. He still just doesn't really always know where he's swimming. But you know what I love about him though, Vince? He doesn't have – there's two plays there where I was like, I don't think he knew what he was supposed to do. But when the ball snapped, boom, he's gone. I mean, he is going. He may make the completely wrong decision, but he does exactly what you and I have preached to our student athletes from the minute we got into coaching. Whatever you do it as hard and fast as you can on the football field. We'll
make
correct
full
the
speed mistakes,
the
man.
worst case scenario is to not only make a mistake, but make a mistake 3/4 speed, or you were actually right in what you thought you were doing, but because you only went 3/4 speed, you didn't get there. So to see Madden, like there was one play who just whiffed on a running back, but he whiffed on him like 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You're just like, he's going to figure it out, and the next time he's going to make that tackle.
Yeah.
But you can't teach that speed, those instincts to see the ball and get to it. And so I just that group throwing press and center. I didn't see Bodie Cahoon today. I didn't notice him in any of the team drills, but I did like what I saw from those other guys, including Preston Zinner, who had a couple nice, really downhill crashes during the drills as well. So linebacker room overall, I thought was really impressive.
Well, I don't know if there's much meat on the bone there, Trevor, but I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about the linebackers now too.
No, you're good, man. Look, I'll say this about the linebacker room.
Sorry.
No, is this your show or something, dude? Look, so
just messing with you, man.
Look, man, what we saw today was a group of kids that played a combined 1,800 snaps last season. Everything was fluid. I mean, everything looked very clear. Like I said, when I was talking about, the defense as a whole, there was a lot of clarity in everything that they were doing. The linebacker room embodies so much of that because they've seen it. To Brian's point about talking about some of the edge rushers, Drake and Kingston and Jalen Sneed and Jaden Osbury were doing it against Ohio State. They were doing it against Georgia. They were doing it against Penn State. And so now you see that reflecting in how fast they're playing the game right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so promising knowing that there's still so much time in between now and when they kick off against Miami. I mean, this linebacking core is going to be just an absolute force to be reckoned with. And today, just for me, I didn't learn anything new. It just confirmed a lot of the things that we've talked about all offseason.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, these guys have all have a year under their belt, except for Madden Faremo, right? The main guys all have a year under their belt of playing high level football, and you can tell, right? Because they haven't lost a step since the season started, last season started. Now they're in spring. They're basically all veterans now, right? And you can tell these guys have been around the block. You can tell these guys have played a lot of football. And, saying that Madden Faremo is super talented, but not quite ready yet. I mean, it's April 5th, number one, and he's going to get it figured out. He's still a senior in high school, essentially. So I'm not that worried because even if it's a 4-man rotation to start the season, they can work him in as the season progresses and as he gets more comfortable because he is that talented. He is that physically ready to play if they need him to or if they want him to, right? So, going off of, what we heard from the linebacker coach a couple of days ago, he's not ready to start right now. And anybody that expected that to be the case is kind of fooling themselves, right? But there's a ton of talent with the other 4 guys who got a ton of reps last year that you don't need Madden Faramo to be a dude right now. He's got a lot of dude qualities. There's no doubt about it. He just needs to kind of get his GPS going and figure out where he needs to be every single time. But there is so much talent in this linebacker room that it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, moving forward. There's no doubt about that. I know our next topic, the defensive backs, is one that Brian really enjoyed talking about on the drive home. There's no doubt about that. There's one particular position that is very, very deep. And so I'm going to let Trevor go first on the secondary, and then there will be plenty left for Brian to hit. That's for sure.
Yeah, because there wouldn't be a whole lot for Trevor to say about the safeties once I'm done. I promise you that.
This is what I'm
promise
saying.
You that. Because I mean, Vince is like, so let's talk about CJ and Kenny. Forget that. I'm going to talk about the safeties. They're dudes. Yes.
So Trevor, your thoughts on the safety play and the corner play, nickel play, all of the above, secondary, hit it.
Gosh, the temptation to just talk solely about the safeties now is just too, oh man, that's tempting. But look, so for me, the secondary, again, when you start off at the top, there is there is nothing that I saw from Christian Gray or Leonard Moore that I didn't already know. To me, there was a lot of positions today where it was just kind of confirming some things.
Mm-hmm.
Is Leonard Moore continuing to grow? Check. Is Christian Gray, some of the corner can be a little bit of a mental game sometimes. And some of the kind of botched plays from last season, have those been flushed? And just how he carries himself on the field, how he was flying around today, yes, check that off. Those are things that we had assumed were going to happen. So some of the things that stuck out to me today, Marcus Freeman talked about this in his press conference. So not spoiling anything, but they held out Devontae Smith once they got to like the team periods at nickel today. So it was cool. We got to see a lot of Carson Hobbs playing in that position. And so I thought that was interesting because you had the corners today looked very long. When you had Carson Hobbs in the slot, you had Leonard Moore out there, you had Christian Gray out there, who's a longer athlete too. It was just, then at times at safety, you would have, 6'5" Jadon Blair next to 6'3" Ethan Long. It's a very long group overall. That's one thing that stood out to me when I was just watching the secondary as a whole. It's like, goodness gracious, like they take up so much space. We'll talk about the receivers once we get to the offensive side, but they had trouble getting open today, not all completely for things that they were or were not doing. It's just the secondary is so long. They eat up a lot of space. They're really good at the point of attack. Safeties to me today, I had the same feelings about a Don Schuler that I did with the corners that I talked about. Didn't learn anything new, just kind of confirmed he's at that next spot. The young safeties, man, were really exciting to watch today. And I'll just leave it at that and toss it up to Brian. But yeah, for me, that's secondary as a whole, man. They're seemingly picking up where they left off.
I will, before Brian talks about his love for the safeties, I just want to point out one guy that stood out to me that we haven't talked about. I thought Cree Thomas had a good day today. He got a lot of reps. They allowed the defenders to be physical today on the wide receivers. Okay.
Yes. I thought I was watching 1990s NFL for a second there. For a while.
Right. So I did want to mention that.
Holding or pass interference today? Just not doing that today? Cool.
It's all good. They were very focused on the interior and not really the outside, but that's okay. I with all of that said, with Cree Thomas being a freshman and the first time I've been able to see him, I thought he had a good day. I enjoyed watching 20 kind of get after it. So Brian, I give it to you, sir.
Is it my turn now? Can I talk about the safeties now?
You can. It's all good.
Hold on, let me mute Trevor. He's trying to start some stuff down here. Well, first of all, guys, like the safety position, we knew it had a lot of potential, but it was one of the bigger question marks. And so part of the reason that I spent so much time watching today is because, what am I going to really learn about Drake Bowen from today? What am I going to really learn about Kingston and Jalen Sneed and Jaden Alsbury and Jason Onye? Who, because of what they're going against, you know what I mean? It's just, and spring, usually the defense is ahead of your offense. And so it just was like, But the safeties, they're still going against Eli Raridan, and they're still going against it. And again, the defense wasn't perfect. There was a huge play today on the screen to Eli Raridan that went for a big gain. Somebody clearly didn't read the play. It was also a great play call. It was a great play call, and Eli Raridan made a couple guys miss. But overall, I just thought the play to safety group was really good, and we saw everybody making plays today. I mean, literally every scholarship safety that was playing safety, because again, I'm not talking about like Ben Minnick and Tay Braun, Benny Powell, because they were playing nickel today. I'm talking about the guys who were playing deep. They made plays. Mm-hmm. And, obviously Don Schuler performed very well today. I mean, there was a play, guys, where we were talking about Jabron Payne. I'm like, man, what a great cut. It's a great read and a great cut. It was a 2-yard gain. Why? Because as soon as he made the great cut and stepped to the hole, Don Schuler just filled it and just, play is over.
I mean, it was a solo tackle for a 1 yard, 1 or 2 yard.
And if
gain.
he misses Jabron on that play, it's a touchdown.
Correct. Yep.
And so it was a really impressive fill. He didn't allow Jabron to get his feet going again, really, after the cut. He couldn't accelerate again. But there was plays where they were trying to bounce, and pursuit was excellent on the outside. You had the play I talked about with Jadon Blair. He is physical. Like, for a tall, skinny kid, he is not afraid to stick his nose in there. And neither's Bronte Johnson. Like, that might have been the biggest surprise of me today. Like, hey, guys, here's something I saw today. True story. Notre Dame tried to bounce a run outside, and Kennedy Urlacher, I'm watching the play. My peripheral's pretty good, Vince. You know this. Like, I can see a lot.
Yeah.
And I did not see Kennedy Urlacher when I saw the run happening. And then as soon as he bounces out of the corner of my eyes, this little white missile, white being the color of their jerseys.
Oh,
just
careful.
Come out of nowhere and just blow up the running back behind the line of scrimmage, I believe, on that particular play. And you're like, but you knew he could do that. I thought Kennedy was pretty solid in coverage today. I had been told by a couple sources that Kennedy is improving in coverage, which is huge for him. And you saw that today, just being in the right spot in some zone coverage plays. There's a couple times they ran deep routes trying to get over top, and he would perfectly be underneath or right over top of the route, and that was good to see. So great day from Kennedy. But the thing that surprised me today is just because they're young, tall, skinny athletes, is how physical and aggressive Jadon Blair and Bronte Johnson are. I honestly thought, I'll just talk about Jadon. I think you can see him getting more comfortable in the defense. There was one play, Vince, where he's correcting another player.
That was just going to say that. It was
like, hey, you need to do this. No, it was a sophomore.
Was it a sophomore? Okay.
It was a sophomore. Yeah. I won't say who it was, but it was a sophomore.
Okay.
And so he's getting more comfortable there. His range is just like, he takes 2 steps and he's like 6 yards. It's ridiculous how much range he has. Comes downhill in a hurry. But it's one thing to be physical in high school. It's another thing to be physical when you're going against Kedron Young and Aeneas Williams and Jabron Payne and guys like that. So I thought he was really impressive today and just how rangy he is. But I mean, maybe it's just because I didn't know what to expect. But honestly, Ethan Long had a great play. There was a seam route that they ran to Jack Larson, and as soon as the ball hits Jack, and I think Jack still should have caught it.
Mm-hmm.
It was
a little
bit
high.
of an overthrow,
was a little high, yeah.
Right, a little bit. But Ethan might have knocked the ball out even if he caught it initially.
Mm-hmm.
He was the other, because they were kind of bracketing him, and I think Ethan maybe didn't read it correctly right away. But as soon as the ball came out, you just see Ethan Long just quickly close that gap and hit Jack Larson as soon as the ball got there. The ball gets knocked out. And I thought he was impressive. I mean, like every guy out there, I'm probably forgetting somebody, I thought made plays today. Like the safety room as a whole looked really good today. I thought the guy who looked the best was Bronte Johnson. I thought Bronte was outstanding today. I think it was Trevor or one of you two looked at me like, dude, Bronte Johnson is everywhere. He's super active, I think is what one of you guys said to me. And he was. I was surprised at just how aggressive he was coming downhill in the run game, though. I mean, this is still a pretty skinny kid that was injured much of his senior season with his shoulder and came to Notre Dame with a shoulder injury. to see him coming downhill, laying wood on people, getting sticks, being physical against the run, that was a great sight to see because he can run and cover, and he looked great in coverage today. There was a couple times like his ability. There was a play, and I can't get into specifics. There's a play where he steps down against, like, it looked like his job was almost like a quarters coverage. But he steps down, and as soon as he recognizes pass, he flips his hips and just gets right up underneath the post route, and they're bracketing the post, corner over top, safety underneath. But the ability for him to step down and just transition right out and get up underneath that was just like, dude, that's a big time football move right there. You may not see it if you're watching the ball, you may not see it, but I'm just looking at it like that's why the ball didn't get thrown. Like, why didn't the quarterback throw the ball? Because you aren't completing that pass. John Elway's not completing that pass unless if it gets caught, it's getting caught by a guy in a white jersey, not a receiver. And there was a lot of that today, and a lot of that is because of the safeties. And look, whoever starts a quarterback is going to get into games on Saturdays and be like, dude, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Because this freaking long safety group is it's ridiculous how much ground they cover. But I thought Bronte was incredibly, incredibly active and productive and in the right spot. I very rarely heard anyone correcting him. That was a really impressive for him. And he got some first team reps today. Jadon got a ton of second team reps today. You can tell those kids are fighting for legit playing time right now. And some combination, like if you were to tell me going into the season that Notre Dame safety rotation is going to be some version of Adon Schuler, Luke Talich, Jadon Blair, Bronte Johnson, and Kennedy Urlacher, I'm like, they're going to be great. And by the way, there's this kid named Jalen Stroman that's going to be showing up in the summer too to help out. Like I went from, like, Trev, I'll tell you this, where we had the safety position ranked, this is why we wanted to do it before this practice. Because where I'm going to rank the safeties coming now, it's an overreaction. I get it to this practice, but guys, it was all day. It was all day. The safeties just impressed me all day, and man, gotta tell you, it was fun to watch. It was fun to see. In my opinion of what that position group is going to look like, way different now. It's not so much. I mean, it's still about potential till we get the games, but to see them working within the defense, to see Bronte, because guys, we haven't really seen Bronte Johnson as a safety all that much. They had to put him at corner last year because of the injuries. We haven't seen him at safety. We know he can run and cover because we watched him play cornerback last year. But can he come down and stick? Is he going to be a guy that can come fill and in the run game and fit with the linebackers in the run game and be physical? And I don't know if he can do that. Well, he did today in really impressive fashion, and he's filling out too. I mean, Vince, you saw him in high school. He was really skinny. We saw him at the Irish Invasion a few years ago, and it's a skinny kid. He's starting to fill out a pretty decent amount too. And just the athleticism and range that you see with him, the three young guys, Kennedy, Jadon, and Bronte, their athleticism is elite as a group. I mean, those kids can all flat out fly to the football.
And they do.
Oh, yeah. So that's the group I was more – that was the most impressive position group on the field today, in my opinion, when you consider the performance combined with who they were going against. Was the most impressive performance I saw today. It was from that safety group. It really was. Not perfect. Not perfect, but really good today.
But it's definitely not like there's still question marks there. Obviously, they're trying to replace an all-timer, right? I mean, you're trying to replace Xavier Watts, who last year was the best defensive player in college football. Like that's who you're trying to replace. But they got a lot of options right now, in my opinion. And I think that position is going to be fine. It's not going to be Xavier Watts fine because it's Xavier Watts. But my trepidation isn't what it was before I walked in the door today. I'll just say that, seeing those guys in person, right? So that's a good thing coming out of today's practice for sure. Any more comments you guys want to make on the defensive side of the ball before we move on to the offense?
For me, the biggest thing that I noticed is just as a group, as an entire team, they just look stronger, man. That was one of my biggest question marks going from last season to this season. Because last year we talked about, they're long, they're athletic, they're taller, they're faster. But very rarely would we kind of say, man, this is also a strong group. And I think that was a big area of focus for this team in the offseason. I think that's reflective in some players like adding on some good weight. But at no point today did I ever see at any level with some level of consistency, whether it's D-line, linebackers, or anybody in the second, I didn't see anybody getting pushed around, like physically unable to get off of blocks, physically unable to fly downhill and make a tackle. So for me, that was another really promising thing I saw from the defense today.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the defensive observations from practice today. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends. Of course, jump on the boards at irishbreakdown.com. Always all kinds of good stuff over there. So make sure you check that out. There'll be obviously written content about observations and things like that as well. So make sure you jump on the boards. And then, of course, make sure you jump on irishbreakdown.com for all kinds of other written content, reaction to Marcus Freeman's press conference today, things like that. So you can get it all at boards at irishbreakdown.com. All right, boys, let's go to the other side of the football. Let's talk a little offense today. And of course, we are going to get to the quarterbacks, but not just yet. So you're just going to have to wait just a little bit longer. We are going to get to the quarterbacks, but I want to talk some overall thoughts on the offense today. We kind of touched on the fact, we kind of touched on the offensive line a little bit. We're going to go into a little bit more detail there. But Brian, I'll let you kick this one off. Overall thoughts on the offense before we kind of break it down individually.
It was really hard to have a great feel for where the offense is right now. It is. And it's difficult with a lot of different things. Because look, they had one projected starter from the offensive line practice. It was Charles Jackson. And then he got banged up in the middle of practice.
Came back.
He came back and he practiced, but like they taped his ankle up and he came back but
it was nerve-wracking. We're all like, seriously.
We're watching steps where Bryce Young is going against a walk-on who I don't even think played tackle last year. I think he's playing center at the start of his fall camp or spring practice. I think Max was playing some center at the beginning of spring practice, if I remember correctly. And he's giving you everything he's got. I mean, good high school film, great walk-on. He's a redshirt freshman. I mean, it's a little unfair. We didn't see Jeremiah Love did very little in the team period. He got Marcus Freeman report just a little tweak of his hammy. He didn't do a whole lot today. We didn't see Jordan Faison today. They have a lacrosse game, so he wasn't out there today. Obviously Will Pauling's doing a little bit more in team. That was good to see, but like there's no Malachi Fields. There's there's no Micah Gilbert. It was a very limited group today. It was hard to get a really good read on the offense. And there's times like if you were watching the receivers, there's times where the receivers are getting open, but the quarterbacks have no chance to even see them, much less get a ball out to them. And that made it really hard, if we're being honest, to really have a good feel on where the offense is. But there still were times where they did some good things and made some good plays. And so that was good to see. And even with the offensive line, it's like, look, there's going to be a lot of negativity in this report about the play of the offensive line, just because it's the reality. But it's in no way a criticism of Joe Rudolph. It's guys. They're missing Emil Wagner, Billy Schrouth, Ashton Craig, Gerby Lambert, Chris Tarek, and then you've got Charles Jagasol is the only one that can go today. Anthony Knapp also. I don't care how good of a coach you are. You're just against this defense. You're not going to look great when you're going against someone. There's no. I mean, Will Black's not here. I mean, it's unfair to really evaluate. So it's going to sound like, if you're someone who doesn't like Joe Rudolph, you're going to take it and run with him like, oh, Rudolph's. No, it's not it. That's not the takeaway. It's hard to really get a great feel for what you're going to do, where, like we said, 4 of the projected 5 starting offensive linemen didn't practice, and another who we think should be battling for a starting job, Gerby Lambert, also didn't practice today. So it just made it hard to really evaluate. And then the rest of them are all young. Styles Prescott's a redshirt freshman. Matty Augustine and Owen Strieberg are true freshmen. Max Anderson's a redshirt freshman. Joe Otting's one of the vets out there, man. Like, he's a redshirt sophomore. It was just it was a tough day in that regard. So keep that in mind when we think about how much, and that's a pretty darn good freaking defense to go against. So, of course, the offense got dominated today. But there still were some opportunities for big plays that were made and some that were missed that they're obviously going to have to clean up. But that's kind of my big takeaway, guys. It's just but you know what I did like, though? I thought, with the exception of running back, and we'll get to that because Jawan Sider was not a happy camper today. I thought the rest of the guys battled their butts off. They just got beat. But they competed their tails off today on offense. And I think that's a positive takeaway on a day like today is they, like the quarterbacks. I mean, we'll talk about the walk-off touchdown throw that was made today, which was just like, you got to be kidding me. But it's like they never stopped. They never quit. And that's a good sign. But I can't wait till they get good on good again. That's going to be, hopefully we get a chance to see that during the fall. But yeah.
Yeah, obviously that'll be in August. But I will say, with all of those things that you said about the offensive line, which are 1,000% accurate, there were times where they got a little bit of a push. You know, there were times where they were able to make some holes for the running backs or give the quarterbacks time to throw and, you know, things of that nature. So there were good things that happened with the offensive line.
They just battled.
They absolutely battled. Yes,
they battled, and that's
there's nobody out there going through the motions.
Yes, no, there was nobody out there putting their head down. There's nobody out there just not competing. They were all playing their tails off. They're just getting overwhelmed by a far more experienced and far more talented and far deeper group. Correct. You know, it's just that's really what it came down to. But that's where and I'll say this: like, are we going to start off with the offensive line?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Okay, because I'll wait till we get there. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of have that takeaway a little bit. But at the same time, there were a couple guys that popped when you're like, okay, all right. So I'll talk more about that when we get to those groups.
General offensive thoughts, Trevor, that you can take away from today.
Yeah, I think the youth on the field was just kind of reflective of like some of like how Mike Denbrock was in today's practice. I know you mentioned Jawan Sider wasn't a happy camper at times. Mike Denbrock was also not a happy camper at times, with some simple things, alignment issues, snapping the ball on time, things like that. And that to me, I think speaks more to who was available to practice today, not the, oh boy, like there will be people that take it and run with it. It's Notre Dame, another elite defense, question marks on offense. It's like, look, man, like there's a potentially outside of the quarterback position. When they went in the scrimmage, there was like 2 guys out there that's going to start out of the 11 that they're going to have come fall camp. I like 2 or 3. And so like, that's why whenever we're getting ready to break down the offense here, everything for me is just kind of with a little asterisk above it. You know, it's like, this is what we saw. My takeaways from the offense, I try to make it more subjective about this person's performance, not necessarily winning this matchup versus a defense that had almost everybody that was a part of it. That's who they were going against. So that's my biggest takeaway from the offense. They continued to compete. They were exciting at times. You know, there's different things that they did that were really exciting to watch. But overall, it's just you were watching what I would have to imagine kind of what it looks like in their normal year practices where like their starting defense goes up against scout team players. Like that's kind of what we saw a little bit. And so that's where I'm at. Overall thoughts on the offense.
All right. Let's talk about, let's go kind of position by position again. We'll do the same thing we did. Kind of the same thing. We'll start with the big guys. We'll start with the offensive line. And we kind of talked about them as a whole, but, you know, some guys that might have stuck out in a positive way. It's going to be brief, but we want to hit on it.
I'll tell you, my biggest takeaway, guys, is Devin Houston looks like he belongs out there.
That's wild.
We talk about what was the one thing that you could take away from, okay, Brian, with all these guys out, how can you evaluate the job that Joe Rudolph was doing? Well, the physical and technical progression of the young guys is going to be part of that. But watching Devin Houston out there competing, like just a couple of times, like he got off a double team a little too early, and but like he's out there moving people, he's out there battling, he's out there playing with good pad level, using his hands. I looked, I was like, dude, this kid could play offensive line someday for Notre Dame. Like he did not look like a guy. If you didn't know anything about this football team, And I said, hey, what do you think of 52? You would not have been like, that dude looks like he was playing defensive line 2 months ago. That's not what you would have come away with today. You just said, oh, that's a good talent, good athlete, uses his hands well, he competes. He's just got to work on his footwork. He doesn't always move his feet through contact. He's got to use his hands a little better. He's got to work on double teams and things like that. But I was impressed with the way I expected him to be at this time. Not like, oh, Devin Houston's got a shot to start in the fall, but like just where he was, a guy that was playing defensive line a few weeks ago, he's really progressed well and looked comfortable over there. So that was a positive takeaway for me. We're like, he's going to be able to give you some inside depth. That was my first big takeaway from today. I thought Styles Prescott had some really good moments today. He's got really good quickness on the edge, gets out of his stance pretty well. A couple times he's got to work on getting a little bit more width on his initial steps out of his pass set. He's got good foot quickness, gets outside well, used his hands relatively well today. When he got beat guys off the edge, he got beat while engaged, which allowed the quarterbacks to step into the pocket and make some plays. So I thought he had some good moments there. Jagasol, until he got hurt, was having a really good practice.
Yeah, he was pushing guys around.
Yeah, he really was. And there was the one scramble by, I think it was Angeli, right, that had that one long scramble where Jagasol was blocking someone. They looped out, and he looks in, and he steps down and just whoops a guy coming downhill, and Steve cuts right behind him for a big gain. So I thought he had a pretty good day. Owen Strebig's up and down, and it really comes down to his base. When Owen comes off with a nice wide base and steps into contact, he can move people. And then other times he gets his feet real narrow and he bends over at the waist and he can get pushed around. So for him, it's just about more, just learning the position more, just learning the college game more, being more consistent with his footwork. But he had some impressive reps at time and some really rough reps at time, which you expect from a true freshman. Same with Cam Herron. Some really good reps from him. He does not look like a freshman. Like, he just carries himself like a veteran. He really does. And he's a pretty jacked up kid. He's small, but he's pretty jacked up. But, he competes his butt off. He battles, good snapper for the most part. Just, again, it's not always knowing what to do, not always using the proper technique, but overall the competitiveness is there. I thought Joe Otting had a good day for the most part. It's another guy that I thought performed well. Sullivan Absher was okay, but overall it was a tough day for the offensive line. They were just overwhelmed by just a better group of players and a more experienced group of players right now.
Agreed. Trevor, any thoughts on the O-line?
Nothing more than what we've kind of talked about throughout the show. It's a young group of guys. Their inexperience showed, but there was never a question in lack of effort. And some players individually, you could see where the potential is in guys like Owen Strebig, in guys like Joe Otting. Devin Houston was another player that surprised me today as well. But again, we're talking about a group that Notre Dame had 5 offensive linemen coming back that all started games in 2024. Only one of them played today. And so it's just so tough to gauge where they're at.
Say that again, Trev.
Notre Dame has 5 offensive linemen coming back this season that all started games last year.
Yeah. And the one that did practice today started how many games last year?
One.
That's right, because he came in the middle of the one. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not like they had a 15-game starter out there and one of the tackles work hard spots in there. Had one career start. Playing on the offensive line today. One.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just it was a depleted unit, you could tell, and it reflected on the field. But this group and one other that we're going to talk about today, I'm looking at with a very much a grain of salt. And so, it's tough to ask a true freshman to go up and block Josh Burnham and Bryce Young. It's tough to ask Cam Herron at 6'2", 285 and a true freshman to go and block Jared Dawson.
Or Sean Cevalano or Jason O'Neill.
It was a rough day for them, but ceiling is still high. And today they were at this scrimmage with none of their starters outside of Jagasol.
And they competed. That's the thing. That's the big. They battled. They battled.
Mm-hmm.
In the chat, I think Justin is referring to the guys that transferred out. Like, are they missing those guys now?
I mean, in March, April, yeah.
Right,
I mean, when you're
right.
missing 4 starters from last
Right.
year, of course. Of
Right.
course. The offensive line looks way different today if you've got Rocco Spindler and Pat Coogan and Sam Pendleton. Of course it does.
Right.
But
We'll see.
I mean, it's about long term. It's not about
Correct.
can you win on April 5th. It's about can
Right.
you win on
That doesn't matter at
August
all.
31st.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, if there was a game today, a lot of the players who didn't practice today would have played in said game.
Great point. That's
Emil Wagner is
fantastic
healthy
point.
enough to play right now.
Right.
He is. I mean, Billy would play, but he'd be a little,
Sure.
he wouldn't be 100%. Jagus, yeah, correct. The
Ashton Craig's not playing if there's a game today, obviously.
and Anthony Knapp's probably not playing if there's a game today.
Right. But you're going to get a couple guys back.
Probably be able to play. Right.
Yeah.
But it'd have looked a lot different. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a good point, Trev. Good point.
Great point. Bell for Trevor.
Hey,
All right. So that's the O-line talk for today. Let's talk about the guys running behind the O-line. Let's talk running backs and arguably one of the deepest rooms on the team.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It doesn't matter who's toting the rock. I'll say my piece first. It doesn't matter who's running them with the football. It's impressive. Like they have so much depth there, and the running backs coach was still ticked off because I think he expects perfection, and I love that.
Honestly, I thought athletically they're impressive.
Yeah,
I didn't think they played well today, though.
And that's fair. Okay, that's fair.
I saw a lot of bad cuts, a lot of you could tell that the offensive line issues were in their heads a little bit with some of those, especially the older, especially like Jeremiah, Jadarian, and Aeneas. But like Kedron, every time Kedron got the ball, as soon as he's getting the ball, he's getting hit. I don't know what you're supposed to do. There was still one play where he got hit 2 yards behind the line and gained 1.5 yards, and you're just
he's just like,
but there was nowhere to go, and
right,
and just. There was Jawan Sider was losing his mind today, and I get it because there was the one run that I showed you guys on the screen where I was like, I think it was
a cutback, and it was John Payne. It was Payne,
and I said, boy, if he cuts that, so he bounced it all the way back. There was a hole between the tackle and the tight end that if he creases that hole, he's going to go for a good chunk gain, and he bounced it all the way back. And Coach Sider was not happy. I didn't think Jadarian ran the ball real well today. His pass blocking was very disappointing today as well.
Pass blocking was disappointing.
He got. I didn't think Aeneas ran the ball real well today. As far as decision making, athletically they look really good. Like that's the thing. Jadarian had a really nice catch in the pass game. We saw some stuff formationally today with the running backs that we liked. Can't talk about the specifics, but things that we were like, I hope we see more of this next year.
Right.
But I just thought overall, guys, I just thought the decision-making today from the backs was not typical. And I think they I've heard this has been a constant thing in the last week or two is because of the O-line, some of the injuries, and Gerby Lambert didn't get hurt today. I got told a couple days ago that he was out, and obviously Emil hasn't done a lot. Wagner, Shrouth and Knapp. I've been told this has kind of been an issue for a little bit. That they're, I think it's just in their heads a little bit. Like, hey, I got to go make a play because the O-line's not opening the holes for me. I just think that led to them not. Now, to me as a coach, I'm like, I don't care. Read the play, because if you'd have read the play the way you're taught to read the play, there's a crease there. You could have hit that. And that's why you got to stick with what you do, because you may get stuff, but then the fourth play, they block it right. There's a crease there for you, but you're now in your head of, I got to go make a play, and now you bounce into trouble instead of reading it like you're taught to read it, and you go. So that was my frustration with the running backs today.
That's
fair. Didn't think but to your point, Vince, they are impressive athletically.
I just
and
love
some
the
of the
group.
cuts they made, like the cut that Jabron made for the 2-yard gain is really good run. It's like, dude, that's an impressive cut. Like I'm looking around like, dude, that's a great cut. Like, and everybody's like nodding their head, or it's like athletically they look the part. I just thought their decision making today left a lot to be desired.
And not surprisingly, I thought Aeneas Williams made a really nice catch at one point out of the backfield. It was right on the sideline, right underneath where we were. Had a really nice hands-only catch. Still getting used to him wearing 22, so that was something. But he always wears that hood back there, I feel like, when he was in practice last year too. So that helped me out a little bit. But he had a really nice hands catch on the sideline. So I did want to point that out. Trevor, anything from the running backs for you?
Yeah, again, they looked the part. I was more happy today with how they were used, not what happened when they were in use. I guess if that makes sense. But I think there's a lot of validity to Coach Sider's reactions on the sidelines today, for sure. And also the guy that was just ranked the #1 returning running back per PFF didn't take a single rep in team, which I think is also, I'm not saying that he would have done more than the other backs because of the issues up front, but that is one of like the prize jewel of what Notre Dame's running back room is. Didn't take a snap in that situation. And so I think that also kind of factors into me personally, my overall thoughts on them. But again, it's going to be some projection for when they do have a complete offensive line around them, but athletically they look great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they were going through some of the drills before they got to the actual scrimmage, I thought they looked great. So yeah, I see where the improvement's going to come in, but it's definitely not a panic thought for me for the running backs at all.
I'm not concerned at all. It's just an observation of what I saw today.
Yeah,
but like that group's proven. I don't care, but that's what we saw today. I mean, I have to be honest about what we saw today. Just not worried about it.
Right.
Because again, I think it's in their head because they're missing 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen. That's kind of natural. I don't like it as a coach. I'm not accepting it as an analyst. I'm like, dude, they're not going to cut like that when it's Jagasol and Emil and, Knapp or, Shrouth and Craig out there. I'm not worried about it.
So, Trevor, I'm going to give you first cut at the wide receivers today. Bunch of guys out there.
Before we go to receivers, because we just quickly also talk, because if we can just knock out a couple of these positions that we can get out quickly before we get to receivers, just tight end real quickly.
Oh yeah, okay.
Eli Raridan's a dude. Can we all agree?
Yep, he's an athletic guy.
He finally looked like the prospect that Notre Dame was getting in high school.
Agreed.
Because he's always been fast, but today he showed the other athletic skills where not just that he's fast. We saw him sharp with his routes. The one catch he made where he made a bunch of dudes miss. This was a live scrimmage. Like they were taking guys to the ground. Mm-hmm. And Eli's long, it was a 40-something yard gain, caught the ball at the line of scrimmage. Outran 4 dudes, made 3 other dudes miss. That's what stood out to me is like, okay, the athleticism is there. Like, okay, it's back. That was probably my most impressive non-quarterback takeaway from today is Eli is going to be a dude. And everything I've been hearing about how his spring has gone got confirmed today. It's a little bit of confirmation bias, I'll be honest with you, but he was impressive today. So I just wanted to knock that out real quick before we move on to the positions.
Look, getting him in the open field is going to be very important for Notre Dame, in my opinion. I mean, getting him on a crosser where he's got a linebacker trailing him is going to be a win for Notre Dame, right? Getting him in a position where it's him versus a safety in the open field, it's a win for Notre Dame. Like that's where his athleticism can take over. That's where his speed can take over. And, I'm looking forward to, he's 6'7" for goodness sakes. That's a heck of a catch radius for any quarterback that's going to be on this team to find number 9. That is going to be something that they're going to want to look for, I think, on a regular basis. Because, again, catching the ball, yes, obviously, that's what you want, right? But you kind of want him to catch it in the open field and see what he can do, because I think he's going to outrun a lot of guys as well, like we saw today. That was a heck of a run where he caught the ball at the line of scrimmage and then took it like 60 yards. I mean, that was an outran guys and ran a guy over as well. So, like, I'm okay with what I saw today from him for sure. Wide receivers, my man. I was trying to throw it to you before I was interrupt. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Wow, look at that look. I could feel it. Trevor, wide receivers, man. What are your
Just
thoughts?
remember, I know where you live, and it's not that far.
I was gonna say you can walk here. Go ahead, Trevor.
Wide receiver was the other group for me on offense that I'm kind of looking at and kind of analyzing with an asterisk above it, because again, it's a depleted group, like where it's at now. Malachi Fields isn't here. Will Pauling's not 100%. Jordan Faison was at lacrosse. Micah Gilbert's hurt. And so it was a lot of reps for the young guys, which I appreciated seeing. But it's one of those groups where I'm not going to dictate what three true freshmen and, KK Smith kind of back healthy now and Will Pauling at 75% is not going to dictate what my overall thoughts are on the wide receiver room moving forward. Today, what I saw, similar to the offensive line, I think you saw some kids compete. Elijah Burris is still, to me, the wide receiver of the 2025 class that's kind of ahead of the two other guys.
He doesn't look like a freshman.
No. He doesn't.
I thought he was their best receiver today, Trevor.
Oh, I do too.
Completely agree.
He had the one drop. Now, again, Greathouse didn't play as much. They didn't target him a ton. He had that one drop on a comeback route on a really nice ball from Kenny.
Yeah.
But outside of that, and let's hold off on the one, his last grab. We'll hold off on that one until we get to the quarterback discussion. But his route running, he's bigger than I remember him being at Irish. Vince, you saw him at Irish Invasion last year. Does that look like the same kid?
He's skinny.
He looks about 15 or so pounds heavier at least, and he looks at least an inch taller than he did this summer.
And he did a good job of fighting through a lot of the physical contact that was being allowed by the DBs. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times a freshman's going to just be like, okay, fine, whatever, man. But that was not the case today.
Accelerate out of top ends really impressed me today. Like, he's one of those guys. A guy's a good route runner when every time he gets out of his top end, he gains an immediate separation from a guy. I thought that was impressive. And he had that one drop on a comeback. I just think he took his eyes off of it. But outside of that, his hands are strong. And I think he can help him. Like, honestly, I think he can help him right now. He can play for Notre Dame right now. I really do. He's an impressive football player. And he's a different type of athlete than the Faisons and the Greathouses and the Paulings. Like, he's a little bit more of a vertical route runner type. And he showed he's got some speed today too, guys, on a couple different plays. He was the guy that was open I'll hold off. He got open on a corner route where I thought the quarterback should have thrown the ball. He was open for what would have been a big play.
Yep.
And then he had the walk-off touchdown at the end of the practice.
Yeah. Yep. Wide receivers, fun to watch. I definitely want to see the full complement, though, to Trevor's point. I want to see the full complement of receivers before I get, too excited or too, over my skis about what the wide receiver room is going to look like. And that's not going to happen till the fall anyway, just because of the way things are going and, holding the guys out. And
I think I'm a little bit higher on how that group performed today than you guys are. I thought they competed pretty well. They're going against a pretty good cornerback room. I thought Elijah had a pretty good day. I thought KK got open several times and made some grabs. I thought he should have got another ball thrown to him, whereas a one-on-one, and, Steve's just got to give him a chance to throw instead of throwing it 7 yards out of bounds. Obviously, Elijah had a good day. I thought Cam got open a few times. Now, he's got to catch the ball a little bit better. Like, KK had 2 really impressive grabs over the middle.
That's true.
For big gains. And one was in 7-on-7. They were both in 7-on-7. Where you're allowed to get hit. I thought they competed well. There's a couple drops I didn't like. There was a ball that Kenny threw to Jerome Bettis that I'm like, that's a great ball. You got to make that catch. But it was also partly Cree Thomas just staying on him. Even though Jerome got kind of Jerome did a nice job of sealing him off, but Cree just battled through it and
he did
stayed engaged and forcing a complete pass. But there's some things I saw from the receiver group today that I liked. I thought the blocking was good. It was a nice play on a scramble by Kenny for a first down where Logan Saldate turned around and blocked the cornerback and kept Steve open. So I thought the receivers were fine today. I thought they did some nice things. It's hard to really truly evaluate them more so because there were times the play was dead or the quarterback was running as they get to the top end of the route.
Right. Right. Because
Actually,
pressure.
if they caught the ball better today, I'd have a whole lot different thought on it. And then there's a couple times like Cam Williams had an up and down day, did some nice things today, but I mean, he's got a ball. He runs a glance route, and he's got, I think it was Cree Thomas. He's got him beat by 5-6 yards. And the ball's just, I mean, you could say maybe he should have caught it because it was behind him, but like there's no business of that ball by Angeli being that far behind him. If Angeli just throws it here, it's a 60-yard touchdown.
Right.
And then, of course, you had to walk off from Elijah at the end. So I thought there were some missed opportunities from the quarterbacks today, too. I thought Elijah got open for what should have been a big play in a corner, and Kenny didn't see him. So I was actually thought they weren't great by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying I thought they were a little better maybe than you guys were. So there's no way I'm comparing them to the offensive line. Like I give Trevor's point,
right?
Like, you know, there's guys missing. That's what he was talking about, comparing to the offensive line. But like I thought these guys made plays where like we're just happy that the offensive line competed. I think these guys made plays, and so Trevor, I understood your comparison. I didn't take it as like they looked like the offensive line. It's going to look different if you've got Faison and
Sure.
But the other thing too is we saw Will Pauling taking team reps today. He got I don't know if did he take any team reps? I know he took 7-on-7 reps.
Yes,
he
caught a ball over the middle.
That the seam route.
Was that a 7-on-7 or was that
7-on-7?
Okay,
he did play in team. He did play in team.
Yep. But yeah, that seam route was just throttling down, find that opening. I thought was a really nice job. But you could tell he's still not a full speed. You can tell he doesn't have all the juice that he's going to have. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely playing shorthanded. But the defense didn't have Devontae Smith either. They didn't have Jalen Stroman either. So it's not like they were full capacity today either. But I thought they battled. I thought they made some plays. It was a good day. But I mean, Elijah Burris is. I mean, that kid can play. Like look, I was very high on him. You guys remember from the minute they offered him, I was like, this kid can play. He's ahead of where I thought he would be because I think he's hit a little bit of a spurt physically, but he can help them this year. I'm not saying he will. We'll see what happens when the whole receiving core gets back, but that kid can play. That kid can play. And he's a true outside receiver also, which I liked. So I was impressed.
So the moment everybody has been waiting for, let's talk quarterbacks and what we saw. And we saw 5 different quarterbacks taking reps today. So it was I will say from my point of view, it was a little disjointed because there were so many guys taking reps. And so it was difficult.
And how they mixed them up. Talk about that.
Right. Because it wasn't like, okay, this guy's always with the ones, this guy's always with the twos, etc. There were all 3 of the guys in the competition took reps with the ones, either during 7-on-7 or team. All of those guys took reps with the twos, whether it was in 7-on-7 or team. And then, of course, you threw in Ebert. He took reps with team, and Rizak took reps during drill work, but not then with 7-on-7 and team. He was off to the side signaling in the plays. But it's very difficult to get into a rhythm because it wasn't even a predictable rotation. It was, okay, now it's this guy's turn. Now it's this guy's turn. Now it's this guy's turn. And it wasn't like there wasn't an order to it. And so it is difficult. Just for an example, Kenny got a lot more reps than CJ did. It's just the way that it worked out, right?
He got more reps than everybody did today.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But again, part of it's just the way it, some drives are going to be 4 plays. Some guy, he had led them on their longest drive. Yes. Yeah.
So he ended up getting more reps. You know what I mean? And so we saw Kenny throw more balls than CJ did. So there's more to evaluate there. You know what I mean? And so, and every practice is going to be different. This is the one that we saw, right? So a lot of reps for the quarterbacks. It wasn't even by any stretch of the imagination as far as number of reps. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And so it can be difficult to get into a rhythm, right? We've talked about the fact that in the past, Steve usually looked good later than he does earlier. He kind of gets into a rhythm. I don't know that he had an opportunity to get into a rhythm today. You know what I mean? Just because of the way that it was. So we're going to talk quarterbacks. We're going to tell you guys what we saw today. It is not a defining,
you're
whatever.
throwing out a lot of caveats, and I totally get it. But I
All
think
right.
this is good for the quarterbacks because,
Okay, go ahead.
okay, great. You can throw great when this whole starting line is there and you have 5 seconds to throw. How do you handle a day like today? How do you handle when things aren't going your way? How do you handle when you're not able to get into the rhythm? Can you make plays? Because the guys that weren't able to do that today, or the guy that wasn't able to do that today, I think says something to me. So I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, Vince, but I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing because you get to learn a little something about your quarterbacks. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, you looked great in the pocket. Like there's one quarterback in particular, we'll talk about, Steve Angeli, that I thought looked fine in 7-on-7, did some nice things. Looked like a completely different quarterback when they went to team. Kenny and CJ looked kind of the same in 7-on-7 and team. I'm just being honest. So I actually take it as a good thing, Vince, that like all the things you said are true. All the caveats you said are true, but I think it's a good thing. I think it's actually a really good evaluation piece because you do
I don't even mean it as, I don't even mean
when things aren't good.
Yeah, I don't even mean the lack of reps as a caveat. I just mean it's a lack of reps that I got to witness.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like that we wasn't a volume of reps that we got to see. That was my point. I wasn't making excuses or caviats for these guys.
I don't know, Vince. You sounded like the only non-quarterback in this chat. Seemed like you. That's payback for you starting some stuff.
Now I lost my pen. Dang it! Went behind the desk.
That's what you get. That sucker went flying, man.
It did.
That was great. But overall, I think today was a day where it's like, okay, you're going to get to test the mettle of the quarterbacks a little bit. And I think how today went told us a lot about where this group is.
I agree.
Where do you want to start, Mr. D'Addario?
I agree. I'll tell you what. How about now we all want to talk about everybody. So Trevor, give me your overall. Yeah, let's just go in an order. Let's go oldest to youngest. Let's start with Steve Angeli. Trevor, I'll let you go first. Your thoughts on Steve today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard, I haven't gotten to see a lot of practices with him in it. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen now 3. This is my 3rd. But from what I've talked to Brian and when I talk to Sean Davis, Vince, when we talk about it, Angeli is always the guy that kind of starts out slower but heats up as practice goes on. I'd make the argument today. I think it was the opposite. Like, I think that I'm not saying he started practice on fire. He did not end practice on fire. And so it's just, like, I think he was more consistent at the start of practice, and then that started to diminish a little bit as practice went on. But I think with him, it's a lot of the physical tools that we've talked about already, that kind of continue to, I don't want to use the word hinder him, but I think it's just, there's a separation in my eyes when I sit down and I evaluate it. The release is a little longer. Timing gets thrown off a little bit. I mean, I think that was shown when certain routes were thrown. Like Steve's misses today were consistent.
Well, and Trevor, there was one point where we were watching. So there's a drill where they have all 4 quarterbacks all throwing routes to 4 different receivers, and they're all running different routes, right? And they rotate, right? And so this one rep, and I leaned over and I said this to Trevor. There was one rep where CJ Carr was on one side and Steve Angeli was on the other side. So they were on the outside of the 4 quarterback rotation. And so they were each throwing the same route, but a mirror, right? It was an out route, but it was the same exact route. So in this, they all get the ball at the same time. They all release at the same time. And the ball was supposed to arrive at the same time. There was a full second difference between arrival time of one ball and arrival time of another ball. It's just, go ahead.
And the problem is that because of the length of his release and the fact that he's not a great anticipator, there's not a way to fix that.
Right.
And Trevor Lawrence had a very long release, but he had a cannon for an arm and he was a pretty good processor, so he could get the ball out quicker. And we just didn't see that from Steve today.
Right.
So
that was just a direct comparison.
To Trev's point, he started the way he always starts in RVA. It was okay. Had a couple corner routes or behind. Did well during the 3 7-on-7 throws. Agreed. And then during team struggled mightily throwing the football. You know what's funny, Trev? You know who had the 2 biggest runs of the day? Steve Angeli.
Steve Angeli.
And they were like good runs. They weren't like can't touch the quarterback, so he runs for 20 runs. Because they were blowing it dead when you had a shot. There was one time they blew it dead on CJ, and one time on Kenny where you're like, no, they're not getting tackled there. But they were good reads, step in to see the opening and take off running for real good gains. I think he converted like a 3rd and 9 on one of those plays where the D tackle didn't get out to the B gap and he took off running. But the problem is, guys, he was really bad throwing the ball today in team, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And he hit a couple checkdowns and that's it. Because he, like, when the pressure got there, and this is the issue, is his delivery is so slow and so long, to Trevor's point, that it's like what we're talking about, the one play where the pressure's coming. So Steve throws off his back foot. She had to, but he dips his back shoulder because it's so long. And then he stays low. You guys could see it when I was showing you the replay. The ball just comes out high because of the way his release is. He doesn't have the ability to kind of throw off platform the way you need to, and the ball just sails way over an open guy's head. And that's the thing I kept saying is, like, there were some times the receivers were open and the quarterback's just sailing it over his head or, missing. And that was the thing that like Trev said, like, he didn't finish well today. He
Right.
just – people call him Angeli a statue. Again, that's a really bad evaluation of Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli's not a statue.
That wasn't that wasn't even the issue.
Who Steve Angeli is.
No,
we
That's
just
why
said he had the
kinda
2
lost
longest runs of the day.
The 2 best runs of the day. The problem is he doesn't have the feel for reading a defense where he can speed things up the way Kenny or CJ can. He doesn't have the throwing motion to speed things up and complete a pass the way that those other 2 guys did and can do. And you saw today when the pressure is there, that's the problem. Because where was he missing all day today, Trev? High and wide.
correct.
All day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he has a traditional long throwing motion that he can't snap that thing off.
And
he was missing. Go ahead, Trev.
Well, in the moments where he did have time and he was able to set and have a good platform because of the longer release, there were throws that were behind. And that's the issue. Like, it was literally the right read. It was, for all intents and purposes, like, it was almost like the right timing if he had a quicker release. Like, I think of that Cam Williams, like, I guess you'd call it drop that we've talked about before. I think some of that's the longer release.
It's an awful ball. I just think that's also him, Travis. He's just not a real accurate ball placement guy. I mean, let's be honest. Maybe Cam should catch that ball. That was a terrible throw. It's literally, there's no safety help. It's an RPO. He's got Cree Thomas beat by, I think it was Cree. Might have been Isaiah Dunn. He's got him beat by 5-6 yards. Not steps, yards. And he just throws it way behind him. If he just throws it at him, then
it's a touchdown.
He's gone. It's a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah. And it was right in front of him. There wasn't even an angle to it. I mean, it was a throw that was right over the middle. So yeah, he needs to be able to make that throw, period. You got to make that throw.
And again, this is he just to me had a bad day. I'm not saying he might have been great yesterday. He may have been.
Yes.
But this is the only practice we saw them do anything other than individual drills, and he was really, really bad today. And not even like had an okay. He was bad today during the team periods. And you could see he was frustrated with his performance.
Yeah, he knew it.
He knew he didn't play well. This was written all over his body language. Yeah. You could see it. You could see it.
So let's talk about the next guy, and then we'll go down one step as far as grade level is concerned. Let's talk Kenny Minchey and how number 8 played today, and it was an interesting day for Kenny Minchey. I will say that, because at one point you leaned over to me, Brian, and you're like, Kenny's best quarterback out there right now.
I said he might be.
He might, yeah.
Like he might be the best quarterback.
Like today,
right.
like he's playing. Yeah. He's playing the best so far today. And then two plays later, he throws a pick 6.
Like, yeah, right.
I mean, so
that's Kenny though,
right?
That's what he still has to fix. When Kenny's on his game, Kenny throws some dimes. We'll talk about this. Well, I'll say now. You and I kind of graded, and Trev, we'll bring you in on this. I thought the 5 best throws today during any of the periods were 3 throws by CJ, 2 throws by Kenny. What's kind of jacked up about Kenny's performance is both his great balls were dropped. They come back and then the go ball to Jerome Bettis. One thing there was one encouraging thing from Steve though. He had a really nice 7-on-7 throw. The one to KK Smith was actually coming off his first read. That was actually encouraging. He came back to that throw to hit that over the middle throw to KK. But back to Kenny, his ability to extend plays. He's got some like the throw he should have thrown the corner to Elijah Burris. I just don't know that he saw him because he was out of the pocket. Because Kenny's not afraid to take chances throwing the ball down the field.
He was rolling to his right.
Right. I don't think he saw him. But, he had a couple of plays where he scrambles for big gains. He threw the ball away when he needed to throw the ball away. There was that one pressure where they brought, I think, 2 off the edge and they didn't touch a guy. He clearly throws the ball away, but he throws the ball away over the head of his receiver. So there's no chance of like getting flagged for intentional grounding. Like that was good awareness. He led the offense on one of only 2 scoring drives today. They only had 2 touchdown drives today. Kenny led him on 1. But the issue for Kenny is he'll make some of those really good throws, and then he'll just make those bad mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had another play where he almost got picked off when he threw an out cut to Jadarian Price because he threw late. And he was rushed because you could tell that the internal clock was speeding up a little bit. So he just rushes an out throw, and the linebacker kind of misjudged it. Otherwise, he steps in front of it and picks it off. And then, of course, he has the bad interception. And that's the issue with Kenny is, like, he just has to eliminate those because when Kenny makes a mistake, it's a bad mistake. You just flat out didn't read the defense. And you think to the blue and gold game scrimmage last year, where he just kind of chucks the ball up and Luke Talich picks it off. You're like, I don't even know who he was throwing to at receiver on that play. Like, I don't even know where the ball was going. And those are things that Kenny's going to have to avoid because his ability to extend plays, his arm talent is special. He's smart. He can tell, but he'll just in the pick he threw. He just decided before the snap, I'm pulling this and throwing this. I'm coming out of the read and I'm throwing this ball out there. And you could see he was staring right at it the whole time. And he wasn't in the corner. He was looking at the receiver, not the corner. And he just see it. He pulls it, and then just as soon as he gets here, you guys heard me go, uh-oh, and then the guy picks it off. And that's the problem with Kenny is he just has those really bad mistakes.
It's feast or famine. I mean, it really is. Like,
to a degree. But man,
there's a lot of feast there. I want to be clear. There's a lot of feast. Yeah, there's a lot of feast there. Right.
Yeah. He's
sometimes
just got Go ahead, Trev.
Well, when I watch Kenny Minchie in practice and kind of in the same lines of the feast or famine piece and how the ceiling when he's on is just so exceptional, dude, I get shades of like Everett Golson, like of the look, man, the arm talent special. He's athletic. He can extend plays, but the mistakes are bad. And that reminds me of, the Everett Golson of 2014.
Very costly.
Yeah. Of gosh, when he's on. But it is very evident when he's not. And so those are some of my takeaways from seeing some of the practice things that we've gotten to see from Kenny Minchie so far is when he's dialed, he's letting it rip. And like watching him throw is probably the most impressive when he's on, in my opinion. But again, when he's off, it's just the misses are rough, man. The misses are rough. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. But the playmaking stands out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a buddy of mine text me, Vince, and I kind of got a good chuckle out of it. He's like, somebody's reporting that Kenny had the best day. And I don't see how you see that, where that's your conclusion. But I think you can say Kenny's best moments were as good as anything else you're going to see.
Yeah, like that's fair.
I mean, his good moments are really good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You've got to clean up those. And it's like 5 plays. Like it's 5 plays. That's it. Just clean up those 5 plays and you got a shot. But that's the thing. And that's what we haven't seen from CJ. is those. Now, again, he may be doing that in other practices. I remember last spring or last fall, we saw CJ get picked off by a walk-on in the Jersey scrimmage that we didn't get a chance to be at. I mean, I know he makes mistakes, but like we can only look at what we're there. And when we're able to see practices, it's just he makes the least amount of mistakes. Yeah. And that's the thing about Kenny is that's the kind of thing that can separate a quarterback battle. Yes, you are as good as anybody else, if not the best we have when you're on. But when you're not on, the mistakes you make are not drive killers; they're drive enders. Mm-hmm. And like the read zone where he made the bad read, I can live with that. That's correctable.
Because he runs the ball hard. Like he would have scored on that. Like he would have scored.
Oh, I think so. They blew him dead, but like they're not.
He scores
had all
on
the
that.
momentum. Yeah, he scores on that. Absolutely scores on that.
Yep. So I mean, it's a bad read, yes, but he runs the ball so hard and well that it's still a score. So it's like But yeah, I'm with you on that one. So let's turn the page to the final guy in the competition, and that would be CJ Carr. I think your evaluation is spot on that, and this is what we saw today, right? He made the least amount of mistakes, but also the best play of the day.
Yeah. So what I felt the 5 best throws today were, and I'm not including RVA, because you could throw the corner route by Blake Hebert in there if we're talking about RVA.
That was a heck of a throw, actually.
Because Blake Hebert threw a freaking rope during RVA on a corner route. I was like, oh boy.
And
5 best throws that I saw.
RVA routes versus air, just in case people aren't following along.
So the 7-on-7 in cut where CJ comes off, he reads it. He knows the guy's going to get open. The guy's a little late out of his break, so CJ has to hold it for a second, and then he throws him open over top of a linebacker right in the window. I'm like, how did he get the ball up and down that way? That was one of the 5 best. Kenny's comeback to Elijah on the sprint out was a great throw.
Yep.
Kenny's deep ball to Jerome Bettis. CJ sprinting out and throwing it basically, it looked like he almost threw a linebacker on that little option route for about a 6-yard gain.
Dead sidearm, by the way.
Yes.
Right. Like parallel to the ground, sidearm throw.
Nobody had a chance to catch that ball except for, I think it was Elijah Burt, or was that Jack Larson?
For some reason, I thought it was KK.
I forget.
So there you go.
It might have been KK. You're right. It was KK. And then the walk-off touchdown to Elijah Burris.
At
the end of the scrimmage. The thing is, he can make all the throws that Kenny can make. It's not quite as mobile, but CJ, they had a designed quarterback counter run for CJ today. He had a couple times where, even if he gets sacked on that play, his ability to make the first 2 pass rushers miss meant it wasn't a -8, it was a -2. But he didn't turn the ball over, and the throws he makes are just, you're just like, he can make throws that nobody else can make. So that's the big thing for me is that right there, Vince, is he just.
I mean, can we talk about
to
that?
To me,
last
there was
play?
Clear separation for today. So, give you an example of it. So, Vince said, we didn't see a ton of throws by CJ today because
correct. It's just the way it worked out.
Yeah. And so we get in there. It was the last period. He was the last quarterback to go, right? Wasn't it? They didn't have anything else after that.
Nope, that was it.
So ran the ball a couple times. It was sort of like a red zone type of drill. And CJ, they're all feeling the pressure. They bring a blitz. CJ drops back. He sees the pressure coming. Backpedals 3 steps, not in but buying time. Soon as Elijah Burris breaks on the post, he just launches it into the back of the end zone. Elijah catches it and then double taps the back line. He threw it from 35, 40-yard line?
Yeah, so it's like a 50-yard ball.
And you're just like, dude, that's an elite throw that you're just right.
He put it in the back of the end zone. There was no way anybody else was catching it. It was his guy or nothing.
It dropped down.
It just dropped right into the basket. It's like those throws that quarterbacks do at the end of practice where they try to get it into the trash can. It was that kind of a throw in live team. It could not have been a better ball. It's just not possible.
It's one of the best throws I've seen in a long time in Notre Dame.
Correct.
It was and that's the kind of throw also that Everett would make. That's
And-
the kind of throw Jimmy would make. You know, and man, it was a exceptional throw. And that's the, I mean, and it was the second touchdown drive that the offense was on. I mean, it just was
right.
there's just like, to me, guys, today was a very clear example of the two best quarterbacks in the room by far are CJ and Kenny.
Correct.
I mean, experience only takes you so far. Just the ability to make throws, to make plays with your arm that nobody else can really make, to be able to handle the pressure physically and have the type of mechanics needed, the anticipation. Like Stiers was even kind of like getting fired up today. It's like the one in cut he threw in 7-on-7. You're just like, the anticipation he showed on that throw to get the ball out. You're just like, I don't know what else you need to see about that. You know what I mean? And it's just like I'm not ready to say CJ's the guy, because again, when the Kenny's highs are really high,
right.
But it's just like, and this is what I've heard from my sources throughout spring, is just the steadiness that CJ brings to the table is just what really stands out.
Yeah.
But guys, today was the most obvious that I've ever seen, where it was just like, there's a very clear difference in talent between two guys and the other guy when it comes to the returners in this quarterback battle.
I do
very apparent.
I want to add one piece because since I haven't seen a ton of CJ Carr, right? Because he was the third quarterback last year, right? When we got to see practices and stuff like that. And this is the first time we've seen an entire practice in the spring. And so I haven't seen a lot of his outward emotion, right? Because it's the third team quarterback. Like, you don't get a whole lot of opportunity to have outward emotion when you're the third team quarterback. When he hit that throw to end practice for the touchdown, obviously he was running down to celebrate with his team and everything, because the offense was on one sideline, defense was on the other sideline. So he's running down to celebrate with his team. He immediately looks over to the defensive sideline and is talking some mean trash as he runs down. Like, it was awesome. Right. I don't even know what he said. It doesn't matter. But like, he was like looking at the sideline and just hyped up, and it was just fun to see.
The thing to me, the command that CJ and Kenny both show of the huddle also stood out to me today.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Both of them. Like, they both have much more just outward, obvious, like, hey, I'm in charge of the huddle. Both of them. And we didn't see that last spring because they were both young and still learning, and a lot of question marks. Yes, like
100%.
They both showed me a lot more. Because I promise you, Kenny would have done the same thing if he made that throw.
Oh,
and Kenny can make that. And that's the thing is there's two quarterbacks right now on the roster that can make that throw. Kenny and CJ. CJ made it today. For all we know, Kenny made that same throw. Yes, we don't have any clue. We weren't there. But the other thing too is this is for the moment. This is how impressive. I wish there was. I pray that Notre Dame puts a highlight out of that play. I pray that they show that play, because we can't show it. You know what I mean?
No,
but
no, we can't.
That was like what it was. Such an. It reminded me of the Bird game back in the '80s against the Hawks. Trev, I think I made you watch this, right? Where the Hawks players are like high-fiving each other on the bench because of just how filthy. When Bird was making shots, they were like high-fiving each other. They got fined for it. And to look over, and obviously the offense is going crazy, but there was defensive players that were like kind of going nuts on that, because at the end of the day, they're all teammates. And like there was one play, like I think it was like when Steve made one of his really long, like really nice run, you could kind of hear, both sides kind of, nice job, 1-8, that kind of thing. But like both sides were a little bit kind of, you could see it. Some of the defensive guys, maybe it was the guys who weren't playing, but you could tell there was like a whoa, like that's a big time throw. But one thing that I'll say is, I did not notice with any of the three quarterbacks any difference in how the players react to them. That's a good thing. I think the players have confidence in Steve. They have confidence in Kenny, and they have confidence in CJ. That's why Elijah kept running, and he didn't just stop. You know what I mean? Like, he kept running. You see that with CJ. I mean, with Kenny and Steve as well. Like, none of the quarterbacks, there's not a difference with any of them in regard to how the players react to them. And that's an important thing to talk about too. So this notion that, well, this guy's the locker room wants this guy, it's not what we saw today. The way I look at it, the way the players are going to have faith in whoever wins that job, the way that they reacted to him today.
Yep.
Just the huddle, everything. And that's a good sign because that helps with making it harder to make the wrong decision. Because even if you make the wrong decision, you're still be okay because they're talented kids. And then, of course, if there's a faith in my concern, one of my big concerns was, can this split your team like 2016? And what we saw today, I don't have a lot of concern about that now. Just the way that the entire team reacts to all three of those kids. That is, I think, an important thing to discuss as well in this practice is I don't see this being a locker room splitting decision right now based on just how people react to all these kids. And I think that's important. But I'll just come out and say it. Today was the most obvious where you can't watch that quarterback room and come away thinking that all three of them have a legit shot to start on this football team and lead this team to a championship. I don't see how you can watch today's practice after everything we've seen in the past and think that that's the case. There's a very clear difference in obvious arm talent between Kenny and CJ and Steve. And look, I know that's going to piss some people off. I'm a Steve hater. I don't hate Steve at all. I think he's a great kid. But it's just, guys, it's obvious. And yes, this was an abnormally bad day for Steve. Steve is usually better than what we saw.
I agree with that.
Definitely better than what we saw today. And if I had to pick, what do you evaluate more, the Penn State-Oregon State game or today's practice? The Penn State and Oregon State game clearly matter more to me than what he did in today's practice. But what today's practice showed us is there's a difference in size, there's a difference in arm talent, there's a difference in athleticism, and there's a difference in playmaking ability between CJ and Kenny and then Steve. And I don't think that's debatable. I mean, I don't see how that's debatable after what we saw this spring and especially today. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to be not honest. I'm going to be open about that. Today was obvious. It was very obvious, Trev. I mean, am I making too much of it in your opinion? You feel free to tell me if you think that I am.
No, I think all sample sizes are on the table. Like, we have what we have to evaluate. I mean, the one thing that I was going to say is, like, you guys talked about it already. Steve was not good today. Just plain and simple. He could have lit the world on fire yesterday, but we don't know. None of it to me is beyond the realm of possibilities. CJ was dialed today. He had the best throw today. His mistakes were the least mounting of today. Like, Steve's biggest mistake, one, he didn't pull the trigger on a corner route, and he ended up scrambling.
But you know what he did? You know what he did, though, Trevor, not to cut you off? The first thing that he did, and we talked about the big screen and how it has the last play on it, before he even looked over to the sideline for the next play, he was looking up at that screen because he knew that he missed something, and he wanted to see what it was.
Oh, yeah.
So he was already coaching himself up about what to do the next time that happens. Like, I didn't watch all the guys close enough to see if they were doing that as well. I just happened to see that. And he's like staring at that screen to see like what the coverage was, what he missed. Like, that says something to me. Like, he's always learning about, and again, that's not on the other guys. That's what I saw with him. And I like that. Yeah,
absolutely. It's just, Brian, to answer your question, I don't think you're reading too much into it because what we got to see today, to me, it was, I understand talking about all three quarterbacks as a whole. CJ was the best quarterback today to me by a lot. Like, it's not, and I don't think that part is debatable either. Not to say that Kenny also sucked, but to me, 1-3 stood out above all the others.
Can I ask a question? And this is, if you take away the pick, do you think it's more debatable? Because, like, when I made the statement to Vince that I think right now Kenny's the best, this was before that final team period where CJ went down and led him on the touchdown drive and before Kenny's pick. Like, so my question is, if you take away the pick and everything else is the same, but you take away that pick, I think we all agree CJ's probably still the best because CJ's best throws came after I made that statement to you guys. We hadn't really
True.
seen CJ do a whole lot up to that point in time, except
we
for that
hadn't.
one really impressive in throw
Right.
in 7-on-7. But he was handing the ball off and stuff during the team period.
Yeah.
Do you think it's much more debatable if you take away that pick that Kenny threw?
I
I
think
know
it's
it's hard to
more debatable.
remove something that happened. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more debatable. But now, if the entire practice went the exact same, and CJ still made all the throws that he did, and Kenny still made all the throws that he did minus the interception, to me, it's still CJ. Takes a day.
Don't disagree with that. I just think it's more debatable. I think it's closer.
Yeah, it gets closer.
Yeah, agreed.
If you take away the pick. But that's the thing that Kenny's got to clean up. He's got to clean up those mistakes, because you can't, in a discussion on a podcast, we can say, if he doesn't throw the pick, what are your thoughts, Trev? But he did. And that's what he's got to clean up. If he's gonna win this job, if Kenny's gonna win this job, he has to stop making those mistakes. He has to. And why I say that is not that if he starts, he's not going to be good, because Vince, I said this to you. If Kenny's the starter, okay, I'm good. He's going to make throws like that. He's going to turn the ball over like that. He just will. Brace yourself. But I can live with it, because he's going to make some big-time plays as well. The reason I say that about Kenny is because you're not competing against Steve. You're competing against CJ. And that's why you can't make those mistakes as often as you do.
Right. If CJ Carr was not part of the equation and it was Kenny versus Steve, cool. Like,
it's over. The competition's over, in my opinion.
Correct. And even with that mistake, even with the propensity to turn the ball over, the ceiling is just so much higher that you go with Kenny in that regard. Like, if that's what the competition is. But CJ's involved, and he's not turning the ball over, at least visually from what I've seen. He's more consistent. He's more consistent, right? And he's got a high ceiling. So,
well, that's what my sources tell me too. I mean, that's the other thing. My
enough.
sources tell me that same thing. This isn't just me saying it's what we see, but it's also, it's also something that I'm hearing from different sources as
just
well.
The consistency piece. Yeah.
Right. Just he's the most steady. But I also hear that when Kenny flashes, it's really impressive.
Yeah.
That's why I say he's got to clean that stuff up. He's got to clean that stuff up. And if he does, Kenny Minchie, that's why I'm very clear to say, guys, the competition at quarterback is not over based on what we saw today. Because I still say that what number 8 does is good enough to where, like, we're going to carry this thing up. Because if Kenny can clean that stuff up the end of spring, into the summer, and the fall camp, then it's going to be a neck and neck battle. Yeah. If I had to pick a quarterback today, it's CJ Carr, and I'm not. It's a very short conversation. But I don't have to pick a quarterback today. But what I do think is very clear today, that at the end of the day, guys, this is going to be a two-man race, truly a two-man race. And you can talk about experience and nerves of steel and all that all you want, but it was very obvious. And I just think with the body language of the quarterbacks as a whole, I'll just leave it at that I think that's being borne out throughout the spring. Just kind of how I feel about that one.
Yep. I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore. Gentlemen, do you have anything else to add on the quarterbacks before we put a bow on this one? Okay. Folks, thanks for hanging out with us. And again, this was our one and only full practice viewing of the spring. Obviously, the spring game is a week from today. We will all be in attendance for that. Looking forward to it over at Notre Dame Stadium. Like I said, a week from today, 2:00. Also on Peacock if you're not in town. So
I love being in the stadium. I do.
Oh, come on.
I really do.
I'm not upset because it was raining.
It's a freaking spring on April 12th. I love being in the stadium.
Right. I would have loved to be in the stadium today, but like the weather wasn't great. But yeah, I'm with you on that one completely.
I've always loved it, but it's so much nicer inside now. Like it's always been iconic, but I don't know. It's just like, it doesn't get old, Vince. For me, it hasn't got there yet. No. It hasn't gotten old yet. I still love being in that stadium.
Yep.
I do. As of right now, the weather forecast for Saturday is clear skies at 57 degrees.
Let's roll, baby.
So
let's roll. Let's roll. Let's roll. That'll be that works for me. So we'll all be there. We will all report on it. We will have a show after it on next Saturday. TBA on the time, depending on when we all get back to the house and whatnot. But we'll definitely bring you guys our observations. As far as media viewing for spring practice, it is now over. Like, there's no 4 periods. There is no nothing. We don't know what they're doing between now and next Saturday. All we know is there is a spring game on Saturday. So we'll see you all there. So make sure you check that out. And, of course, make sure you check out the boards.irishbreakdown.com. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a, hit that notification bell so you know when there's going to be some shows and things of that nature. We got a great week, obviously, in store for you. Same schedule as always. We got the afternoon show. We got the evening show. We got all kinds of fun stuff. And I know Sean was at practice today as well. He and I are going to have a show on Monday evening. And so we'll get his thoughts on practice. And I'm sure he'll have some sound bites from Marcus Freeman, and we'll have a lot of fun with that.
RTCF on Monday.
There
The topic for Sean and I is going to be, is the 2024 season for Notre Dame what the 2017 and 2015 seasons were for Clemson and Georgia and Clemson.
Ooh, okay. I like where that's headed. All right. Very good. So make sure you tune in 1 o'clock for the RTCF show with Sean and Brian. And then at 5 o'clock, myself and Sean Stiers will bring you some action as well. So for Trevor, for Brian, I'm Vince. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us on a Saturday. Go enjoy your weekend, everybody. And we will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend.